It's dragon time.
Despite budget cuts, we're back for an 8th episode.
So we did have to cut the final 2 episodes of Dragon Time, and due to union labor action, we have to stick to the script of Dragon Time. We're being cynical, but this is Dragon Time. I'm Schwift X.
I'm Glidus.
And we're going to talk about the season finale of House of the Dragon.
Wait, this is the finale?
Dragon time. Talk about the lizards, breathing fire in the sky.
Whoa, nice theme song, me. Hi, Lord knows this is long enough, so I'll be brief. First off, sorry this one took a while. If you're new here, this always happens. Secondly, we recorded this before Germ dropped his blogshell bomb post about Hot D. We'll probably talk about it in our upcoming spoiler discussion video. This video has no spoilers for future episodes. Thirdly, Dragon Time is brought to you by Nebula, the independent streaming platform where the full 6-hour version of this video has been available for a few weeks already. Yeah, I don't know why it's that long either. All the uncut Dragon Time episodes are up there, as well as our Season 1 discussions, which are sort of like a proto-Dragon Time, Wyvern Time, and of course our unfathomable chronicle, The Fake Jon Snow. Together, Schwift and I have over 70 hours of yapping up on Nebula, which is longer than Game of Thrones. Nebula also has tons of exclusive and early access content from other actually good creators. Lindsay Ellis just put out a video about the X-Men movies, which you'd better believe I'm watching as soon as I'm done editing this. Sign up at go.nebula.tv/Glidus to get a 40% discount on an annual subscription at only $3 a month. Without further ado, here's 2 guys who won't shut up about dragons.
There's a lot to say.
There is.
A common complaint is that this episode didn't feel like a finale. It was not a very climactic or conclusive episode.
And of course that makes sense because it wasn't the finale until they had to make it the finale.
It apparently is the case that originally this season was going to be 10 episodes long, and then they wrote those 10 episodes. And then,
not too long before production began,
it has been speculated that that change happened kind of at the last minute.
Speculations have been made in the hours preceding the production of House of the Dragon Season 2.
But it is a fact that the writers had to rewrite this season to make it fit 8 episodes instead of 10 episodes. And it is also true that there were writers' strikes and actors' strikes that were disruptive to the production of Season 2. They were not allowed to change the script that they were filming, even though normally when you film a show, you would tweak the script. So the point is that there were challenges to the filming of this season, and definitely like the change from 10 to 8 episodes appears to have been disruptive, and in my opinion, I think that it fucked with the structure and the pacing of this season.
I agree with that. I love a lot of this episode, but it isn't a finale.
Of course, finales don't have to have explosions in them. Even in Game of Thrones, like traditionally they had a big battle in the 9th episode.
The explosion was the penultimate episode.
And then the following episode was the aftermath.
Quite literally, the explosion was in the penultimate episode of Season 2.
So, I mean, you know, you could make the argument that this season is similar in that the sowing of the seeds and like Vermithor and Silverwing being claimed. I mean, that was
a bit of an explosion.
That was a spectacular action climactic sequence which turned the tables politically, and then this episode is focused more on aftermath. But I agree with the criticism that this episode does not feel like a satisfying conclusion or climax, because it doesn't really wrap up anything for most of the characters.
Can we talk about this episode's title?
It's kind of a wild title.
It's corny to a point where I dislike it.
The Queen Who Ever Was.
Who ever was.
I actually kind of like it, because obviously the Queen Who Ever Was is referring to Rhaenys, who is referred to as the Queen Who Never Was. But I think that the Queen Who Ever Was can also refer to Queen Rhaenyra and to a lesser extent Queen Alicent, but also to Queen Daenerys, who appears in a vision this episode. Yeah. The sense that I get, like, the Queen Who Ever Was, like, that's like the Queen of forever, the Queen of all time, right? And in this episode, Daemon has visions across time wherein he sees Queen Rhaenyra and sees Queen Daenerys.
And Queen Helena.
And Queen Helena. And so I think it's the idea of like the Targaryen queens of all time, of the future and the past, who are all interconnected by this thread of fate.
This is Alicent erasure that I will not stand for.
They could have leaned into it harder, but I think that that is part of the meaning of the Queen Who Ever Was, is that it's referring to like the interconnectedness of the various Targaryen rulers across the dynasty, of which Rhaenyra is a part. And that is the thread that Daemon glimpsed that inspired him to swear loyalty to Rhaenyra. So maybe that's just my headcanon. I don't know if the writers intended for that meaning, but I feel that that's part of the meaning of the title, The Queen Who Ever Was.
You also have Rhaenyra and Alicent talking about how they will be remembered in history, which is sort of an ever was the way you're remembered, right?
Yeah, it's about legacy as well, yeah.
So there's all of that, but then it just sounds clunky. The Queen Who Ever Was. It's just,
When I saw that was the title, I did think that it was a typo at first.
I think that that's a bad impression because you're not the only person who thought that. Compare it to season 1, which was this breakneck thing. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Season 1 tore through 30 years of stuff happening, like barely slowing down to sniff the flowers. And then season 2 is this slow, methodic, almost meandering, like traipse through the first couple months of a war.
Yeah.
Usually in a drama series, the pace escalates as the show goes on.
Yeah.
So I think that the dip in progression, which was probably going to happen no matter how it went, just because of how ridiculous season 1 was.
Yeah.
I think that sort of set audience expectations up for a bit of disappointment.
I mean, yes, season 1 was fast-paced. There were the time skips and there were a lot of big events happening every episode. You know, someone died or someone got married or someone had scandalous sex. There was always something big happening in every episode. However, it was largely a yap fest. Like there wasn't much in terms of like action set pieces or whatever. And so like
the one like massive action set piece in season 1, the Battle of the Stepstones in episode 3, I think it's one of the weakest parts of the season.
I agree. And I remember inside the episode, they were talking up about how like, like Damon's baptized and he's like become a man and proved himself. And it's like, I guess.
Sort of, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, we already knew he was
squint.
a good fighter. Like we already knew that he was willing to do crazy
and then
shit.
he continues to act like a child for the next 20 years anyway. So
season 1 was a yap fest, but it was mostly set up. It was about introducing us to the history and the characters and the relationships. And then season 2 is going to be a bloodbath. Season 2 is when the war happens, and it's going to be like just constant action and stuff because they don't need to tell us who the characters are. We know who the characters are. We know what the relationships are. And season 2 is going to be like breakneck action war. But it's the opposite of that. Season 2 is somehow, despite being the war season, it is slower than season 1 by a lot, and it feels like a lot less happens in season 2. Season 2 was a lot subtler, a lot more introspective, a lot more reflective, which is like, you know,
I love that shit.
Yeah, it's great, but it's not at all what anyone expected from this season, and it's not what you expect from a war story, and it's not what you expect after having seen season 1. So I think that's part of the whiplash.
I sort of love that, honestly.
Yeah.
Having like this weird season where we just like follow a bunch of sad boys around. Damon has these wacky dreams that he has to recontextualize his entire ego before he can confront the political situation that he's created. Like I love that.
I agree. However, I still feel like the structure of this season is unsatisfying. The majority of the climaxes, action and emotional, happened in like the first half of the season, which is just like a really whack way to pace the season. And I think obviously part of the problem is that
because the next 2 episodes were supposed to be here.
Yeah, there is a climax to this season,
but we're getting it next season.
They cut it off and they put it in the next season. And one of the things that's hilarious about that is that that's what happened to George Martin. So
this is the second Dance of Dragons that has been that the climactic battle of has been chopped off of and put in the next installment. And we're still fucking waiting for it.
Yeah, I didn't even. They're both called the Dance of Dragons, and they both got cut in half.
It's gonna happen again.
If I had a penny for every time that the climax of A Dance with Dragons was cut off and we had to wait years for it.
But like this sort of thing has a ripple effect. How is this going to affect the production of season 3 of House of the Dragon? How is this going to affect the Winds of Winter?
They need money for, like, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's like 16 dragons in this show and there's a lot of battles to come, and it's like, how are they gonna do that with less money? Is the next season, are the next 2 seasons gonna be even more introspective and conversational and navel gazing, which is like, that can be good, but I think that some action is required in this war story.
George wrote a Game of Thrones fully in the frame of mind that it would never be adaptable. There are too many scenes with characters on or around horses. And then he put dragons in it, and it was like, okay, this is just a series of novels. It's never going to be adapted. well, where are we now?
Yeah, if George thought that a Game of Thrones couldn't be adapted, the Dance of the Dragons is so much more unadaptable because it has so many expensive dragons and expensive horses and expensive battles. Like, how is this even possible? I think it's good to acknowledge how miraculous it is.
Most TV shows are miracles unto themselves to begin with.
Yeah.
This one is like... How many thousands of people prayed nightly to produce House of the Dragon?
And of course, the first season was made amidst a global pandemic, and this season was made amidst strikes and budget and episode cuts. So, yeah, the odds are against it. Do you think we should talk about the episode? So I was not expecting this, but the beginning of this episode is a monkey.
It's a monkey. It's monkey time. We were unable to... Do you know the name of the monkey now?
I do not know the name of the monkey.
I was unable to ascertain the name of the monkey, which is very important. So, hi everyone. The monkey's name is Rosie.
I suppose the monkey was not affected by the writers or actors strikes. It's a non-union monkey.
I still hope he's paid well.
I hope the monkey didn't cross the picket line to be in Hot D.
Scab baboon.
Is he some kind of baboon? He's got a pink bum.
Lots of people have pink bums. You can't make assumptions, but I think it is a baboon. How did Thailand get here?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's not really clear how the hell Thailand got here without falling afoul of Corlys.
The Valarian blockade appears to be rather porous, as the narrative requires it to be.
Obviously, like Alicent getting to Dragonstone without either Aemon's security or Corlys's blockade noticing, I think is like pretty ridiculous.
All we have to like service that notion is all while helped.
I'm trying to think of someone less qualified to smuggle a queen than Grand Maester Orwyle. So the Triarchy, more powerful together, like the Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Which one do you think Tyrosh is?
I think that Tyrosh is Bubbles.
Really?
Yeah, because Tyrosh is bubbly and flamboyant with the, dyed hair and clothes and stuff.
Yeah, okay, I get that.
Lise is like I think that's, what's the green one?
Buttercup.
I think that's Buttercup, and I think that Mia is Blossom.
The leader.
Yes, that's what I think.
Okay.
What do you think?
My thoughts on this are so deep.
The people just aren't ready to hear what you have to say about the Powerpuff Girls.
This will have to be its own fucking video.
This will be its own 5-hour video.
Did you see that tweet I made
essay.
comparing the Baratheon brothers, Renly, Stannis, and Robert to the Powerpuff Girls?
Oh, but here are the Triarchy fellas. Tywin Lannister is asking the Triarchy to make an alliance with the Greens led by Prince Aemond.
Which is, as Tyland points out, crazy, but like from the Westerosi point of view, this will. I love that he talks about how it's going to drive up the price of basic goods. As the Master of Coin, he's fixated on the minutiae of running an economy.
The Master of Coin. He says that he's the Master of Ships.
Oh my god, he does?
In this episode, he tells Shirako, "I'm the Master of Ships."
He does too. But in episode 1, he's sitting in the Master of Coin seat on the small council.
And King Aegon calls Tyland the Master of Coin.
I reckon Jefferson Hall would have been like, actually, I'm the Master of Coin, but there's a fucking writer's strike on.
They couldn't change the script.
So that's an error, I guess, that found its way into the script and couldn't be corrected.
How embarrassing.
How embarrassing.
Because there is no Master of Ships.
Yeah, in that episode 1 scene, the person sitting in the Master of Ships seat was Little Jaehaerys.
I'm endlessly impressed by the people like yourself who know what each of the seats represent.
It's been like really consistent throughout the show.
Impressive. The Triarchy are aware that the Lannisters are rich as balls, so they ask Tyland for lots of money.
It's a continuing idea that foreigners are sort of like have a mythical understanding of the wealth of Lannisters.
Yeah, and that's something that Tyrion experiences in A Dance with Dragons when he's in the East and people are like, oh, you piss in chamber pots made of solid gold, right? The Triarchy is on the very western coast of Essos. I think they would have a fairly realistic idea of just how rich the Lannisters are. They wouldn't think the Casterly Rock is literally made of gold.
These people may well have been to Lannisport and seen Casterly Rock.
Yeah, totally. I also think it's really dumb, this line that one of them says where they're like, Essos is as rich as it is vast, and therefore we want lots of money. It's like, mate, like Essos? Essos is Eurasia. Essos is like a supercontinent.
Afro-Eurasia is as rich as it is.
What do you mean?
Yeah, like that's not a brag for you, you don't own Eurasia. What are you talking about?
Well, it's like even if Westeros is cut off from us, we have access to this market.
Oh, yeah, no, maybe you're right. Well, yeah, I mean, like this guy is saying, do you think we lack for buyers? Yeah, okay, I think I misinterpreted that line. You're right, because yeah, he's not bragging like we are rich because Essos is vast and rich. He's saying that there are heaps of people other than you in Essos who will buy our tapestries.
Yeah, and like even though you're a rich fucking Lannister, there's riches over there as well that we can gain from selling their wares at.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I was wrong. I think that actually is a completely sensible
Mind changed. Criticism retracted.
I love how sweaty Thailand is here.
Yeah, he does not belong here.
It sort of makes you think, well, like all of these miserable fucks in Westeros who are like sitting in these dark rooms alone. Why the hell aren't they here? Where the bloody hell are you? Like, why don't they get out of this miserable war in Westeros and hang out on this paradise beach with this pirate? It's like,
well, maybe that's what Alicent thinks she's going to do at the end of this episode. Maybe that's what Kristen was trying to get Rhaenyra to do back in season 1.
I think that's what it is.
Maybe that's what Laenor is doing now.
Yeah, you know what?
We should have seen Laenor here.
You like zoom in on the background.
He's one of the Triarchy captains.
He's just got like this giant beard that he's dyed blue, and he's got like some fantastical hat and yellow mustachios, and he's just like trying not to make eye contact with Thailand. He's just like hanging out with the monkey. It's just, why don't they all leave and come here? I think it's so good to show that there is an alternative to being a miserable politician fighting an awful war. And I think by showing the tension between uptight Thailand and the relaxed Tyroshi,
the Triarchy admiral who's just fucking with him for fun.
Yeah, well, Shirako embodies that like chaotic, fun energy. I mean, she also has like a hardness to her with the, war that she wants to do.
Yeah, I really like how there's danger just brimming below the surface with Shirako.
Yeah, Shirako's fun because like a lot of what she's doing is obviously just being silly and having fun, but like 10% of the time she's being deadly serious. So it's like when she says that she eats people, it's like, oh, ha ha ha, but do you though?
How many wives do you have?
Yeah, I love that like Thailand, the master of coin, the accountant, is like looking at his spreadsheet of like how many people can I impregnate in the next 3 hours? Like he's really doing the math.
We can work you in at 2 p.m. and
I've got a 15-minute slot open after lunch. They demand the stepstones.
At the end of season 1, Corlys said that he actually garrisoned the stepstones, so it's not like the Triarchy can just show up. They have to fight for it.
It was not all that many years ago that like Daemon was burning the crap out of the Triarchy on the stepstones. Like, are the Triarchy aware how hard it's going to be to remove Corlys from the stepstones?
I like how Corlys looms over all of this because, like, sure, there's the Triarchy involved with his conflict in the stepstones, but also Thailand was Corlys's replacement on the small council.
I like how Shirako bangs on about like the sea snake will rue the day. Like, Corlys has had an impact on history and he has had an impact on geopolitics, which is really important because like this, the sense that you get in the books is that Corlys is, he's a famous billionaire explorer war hero. Like he's a larger than life famous dude who everyone admires. And sometimes in the show, you don't get enough of that sense.
Yeah. So like he's legendary.
There's this sort of throwaway line where this guy's like, you should topple Aemond and make yourself king. I guess the point is that the Triarchy don't like
they don't really get it.
Yeah, they don't understand Westerosi politics, which, has a lot of rules around succession and inheritance, and not just anyone can grab the Iron Throne, except, of course, Robert Baratheon does.
Yeah, I mean, Aegon the Conqueror, like there was no rule saying that he was going to be the king. He just made himself the king.
Yeah, so
you can just do that.
So it might seem naive that the Triarchy is just like, oh, just take the throne. But it's like, well, you can sometimes. The Westerosi are so caught up in their narrow view of how politics should work. Whereas these pirates are like, what if we made our monkey the king? And it's like, well, maybe, I guess.
What if we put a horse on the small council? What would happen?
Yeah, that always is the lesson from like learning about other cultures is you reflect and you're like, oh, I guess my own culture and my own assumptions are like arbitrary and the way that we do things.
Out of all the cultures, the one I was born into is the objectively correct one.
Yes, I happen to be born into the correct culture, religion, and pant size. Not that the pirates are like good people, let it be known. I mean, these guys were the ones who like were nailing Westerosi people to beaches to be devoured alive by crabs,
were
right?
hungry.
Yeah.
He's an environmentalist. Save the crabs.
Crabs in the chat. It's not like these guys are like yo-ho swashbuckling like fun pirates. They're still like these cutthroat, brutal warlords. But at least they're having fun.
Wow. That's one criticism you can't levy at Shirako Loha.
Yeah.
She's living life to its fullest.
She sure is. Do you think if Thailand just said, no, I'm not going to mud wrestle you, I'm going home, Shirako might have just done the alliance anyway?
They might have broken the blockade, but not in alliance with the Greens. Just like, now it's our blockade.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe they'll do that anyway.
Yeah.
I do like the costume here, Shirako's costume.
Yeah.
Abigail talked about how there's like 10 knives secreted in various pockets and boots on this costume. I feel like you can't even see many knives on it.
You can't see them, but you can feel them.
Yeah.
You know there are more knives there.
Shirako wants to know what kind of person Thailand is. She wants to learn what he's made of. And she asks if he's a philosopher.
Which is one hell of a coincidence because as we've previously discussed, they did not change the script on the set. And the script was written before the role was cast, apparently. So they did not add that in because Abigail Thorne has a channel called Philosophy Tube.
It's a wild coincidence. They talk about Thailand is thin but also tall.
That was so weird to me.
It's extremely bizarre, right?
I think that this guy, who I assume is a Mirish captain because the other guy has the blonde wig, so he must be Lyseni, and the other guy has a blue wig, so he must be Tyroshi, and this guy must be the Mirish guy, right?
I think that the guy on the left is the Mirish one and this guy's the Lysene one, I think, actually. The subtitles identify the Mirish and the Tyroshi guy.
The subtitles? You're going to side with the subtitles over me? I thought we had something.
I think this maybe is the Lysene guy.
Well, I hate that.
Oh, because
he has a blonde wig.
Right, because the Lysene are more
Valyrian-ish.
I don't know if they thought about it that much.
I just work here, man.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
Maybe this guy has something in him because like he's tall. You know?
I don't know. I think this is the entire purpose. Like the purpose is just to throw off Thailand and make him like confused and uncomfortable.
Yeah. The delivery of his line when Shirako later asks him, have you eaten the flesh of your enemies? And he's like, what? That's this. That's the feeling.
I like that Aegon this episode. Aegon.
A third pronunciation has dropped.
Aegon. When fucking hell, I can't speak.
When Tom Glencarney.
When Laris tells Aegon we're going to Bravos, Aegon says, "Oh, we're going to live with the goat fuckers," despite Bravos being like the most cosmopolitan, advanced, enlightened place in the world. The Westerosi nobles have this dim view of Essos, despite the fact that Essos is a better place than Westeros in some ways.
Especially Targaryen monarchs would think that.
Yeah, true.
Even though Valyrians are Essosi.
So Shirako, I think, sees Thailand as like fresh meat. Like, I think that she's like sufficiently razzed all of the pirates in her camp, and now she like wants a new victim. And Thailand is the perfect one because he's so hapless. You know, it's a game for her to like bully Thailand. Some of the Triarchy men refer to Shirako as he and him. Shirako's female, but they like see Shirako as playing a male role in that she fights and leads and marries women, and so it's a comment on gender roles in the same way that Rhaenyra and Alicent have been dealing with gender roles. Shirako is someone who has like larger things on her mind than pronouns. Like she's more interested in getting a new knife for her boot than she is in getting a correct pronoun.
Have blue hair and pronouns. The woke triarchy is coming to break the blockade.
The woke triarchy with their blue hair and their the pronoun police are invading King's Landing.
No.
Yeah. Hey, look, it's Vhagar.
It's a dragon.
It's a very weird shot. This is actually a very weird shot because it's like kind of out of focus and it's like right up the dragon's nose. Like this is the most unflattering close up. But yeah, Vhagar and Aemond burn shot point.
Woo. Do you get the impression that this is like immediately after the end of the previous episode?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because shot point's like along the way back.
It's not far from Dragonstone at all.
Yeah, that might be the case. I'm just imagining Aemond like sort of flying in circles, just like weeping, just like, oh, they got more dragons than me. What do I do about it? And so he burns shot point. Do you want to yell at Ryan? Ryan?
Well, see, I don't care what anyone says in the behind-the-scenes material, so it's immaterial to me. You can if you want.
In the books, Sharp Point is ruled by House Bar Emin. House Bar Emin has a swordfish for their sigil.
Which is fucking epic. Swordfish are awesome.
Swordfish have sharp points. Of course they should rule Sharp Point. They have a sharp point. It's perfect. But inside the episode after show, the showrunner Ryan Condal said that Sharp Point is ruled by House Massey. In the books, House Massey rules Stone Dance.
Well, maybe in the show, fucking Sharp Point is the seat of House Massey. Does that actually change anything?
Well, they just could have had Aemond burn Stone Dance instead.
Yeah. But that's less on the way. So my headcanon about him doing this immediately after leaving Dragonstone is less plausible.
There is no way they cared
really
about Dragonflight geography travel times more than they cared about having the houses rule the correct castles. I mean, yeah, obviously this is an extremely small nitpick.
It's not even in the episode.
The show can change the canon if they want. It's an adaptation, but it does appear to be an error. And here's another thing. It's another thing that they might have noticed was wrong while they were filming, but they couldn't change the script. It's just annoying because one of the many things that I love about House of the Dragon is that it shows a lot more reverence for the books than Game of Thrones. So it's just a bit disappointing when it makes what appear to be unforced errors.
The idea that Sharp Point is like owned the seat of the Masseys isn't even in the episode. It's in para material.
I mean, they could have just like re-uploaded that inside the episode thing if they wanted to correct that.
Right, where Ryan Condal walks on screen, he's in front of a green screen and there's a map of Westeros behind him. He's like, "Hi everyone, just wanted to clear the record up on this," like he's doing a fucking YouTube correction. Editing Ryan here.
I would like them to film a segment where Ryan Condal apologizes for getting Sharp Point wrong, and
to
then
you directly,
to me personally, and then George Martin walks on screen with a cream pie and just pies Ryan in the face.
The Winds of Winter will be out next week.
Due to Ryan's embarrassing mistake, I have delayed The Winds of Winter an additional 4 years. I needed to add 7 chapters about House Bar Emin. The burning of Sharp Point is not in the books, so it also is a change that makes Aemond more villainous. Towards the start of Aemond's arc, they were making Aemond more sympathetic because he only accidentally killed Luke and he was bullied.
Yeah. And the season 1 dialogue is about how he wants to do his duty for his house.
Yeah, so he started out as a more sympathetic character, whereas now he's becoming a more evil character, committing deliberate atrocities. None of which is in the books, but in the books he just seems to have been like hatched from the egg as like a bit of an asshole, but they're actually giving him an arc, which I think makes sense. We go from people being burned alive to Aegon who is burned. All of the thousands of people who just got burned by Aemond are suffering like Aegon has suffered.
Worse.
Aegon is also a character who they have given an actual arc by making him like more monstrous with like his abandoned children and his sexual assault, but also making him more sympathetic than the books with, you know, his charm and a lot of his pain and a lot of his neglect by his parents.
Yeah, and we see a bit of like aspiration for who he could be in this scene.
He still wants to drink and he still like derisively talks about the SLC goat fuckers and stuff. Like he's not...
And he's fixated on his penis.
Yeah, like he's not...
I mean, which is fair enough given that it exploded.
Yeah, I think I'd be a bit fixated in that circumstance as well.
It exploded. Anyway, on with my day.
Do you think the realm might be better off if Orwell put a pillow on Aegon's face?
We just saw, you know, the guy who would be in charge after Aegon burning a town because he got frustrated.
Yeah, that's a really funny thing is that in almost any other circumstance, killing Aegon would probably be a good idea to remove him as king. But in this circumstance, the alternative is Aemond. Talk about a rock and a hard place. Laris Strong comes in and says,
we got to get out of this place.
Dodge.
We have to leave immediately.
He tells Aegon that Rhaenyra has 3 new dragons. Aegon says that's impossible, which I think is good and important. Aegon has to have thought that it's impossible for a rando to get a dragon. Otherwise, he would have sent dozens of randoms to Dragonstone to take the dragons.
I just want to reiterate Aegon's disbelief that Rhaenyra found those riders for those dragons because it matches. Mizari is just like, she says, you've done the impossible. Is Aegon also thinking that Rhaenyra, like, oh fuck, maybe she is the chosen one?
I don't know if Aegon believes in destiny and prophecy.
He's probably not thought about that at all.
He might be vaguely aware that Viserys was into that stuff, and he was also aware that that stuff destroyed Viserys.
Yeah.
And Viserys cared more about dreams and prophecies than he cared about his son, Aegon. So Aegon has this selfish desire to be loved by the people.
And to remain alive at this point.
And again, Aegon says, I am the king.
Yeah.
And no true king says, I am the king. Aemond is going to kill you.
So, hey, why don't we put me on the throne now and take him prisoner when he gets back? Which is like so adorably naive.
Aegon is in like the most physically vulnerable position possible, but he is still trying to assert himself, which is very like Targaryen of him.
Viserys III, Daenerys' brother, when, you know, he's restrained and Drogo's about to melt his skull.
Yeah, I mean, he grew up being told that he is
Exactly.
the rightful owner of the throne. And so, of course, he doesn't want to run away. Even if somehow miraculously you subdue Aemond, then how are we going to fight Rhaenyra's 7 dragons without Vhagar?
Yeah, and Laris is absolutely correct that the only play here is to leave immediately.
Yeah. It's very logical in a way that some other parts of this episode aren't.
In anticipation of little bumps in the road, I've put all of my wealth in a different continent.
Look at Aegon's fucking face.
You want me to go where?
I think Larys is being a dad. I think Larys has never cared about someone like he cares about Aegon. Because here's the thing, if Larys was only interested in his own safety and his own interests, he'd go to Braavos alone.
If he has further designs on power for whatever reason, he needs a figurehead.
Aegon is not a great figurehead.
He is a figurehead. And he's the one that Laris can have. I do see like a personal connection between them.
What exactly are Larys's feelings for Aegon? I think that's really interesting. The problem with like Larys the Spy Master is that he doesn't do any spying this season.
The outcomes of the actions in King's Landing make it look like there is no Spy Master.
And like, I'm completely fine with the idea that Larys no longer supports Aemond and therefore he doesn't feed Aemond information. But it's like, is Larys no longer learning any secret information? Like, that was one of his defining things. That was kind of his only thing in season 1, is that he knew things.
I'm still no closer to knowing whether or not Larys had anything to do with blood and cheese than I was when it happened. Did he let that happen? I don't fucking know. And it's been a whole season.
I agree. I think that like this season is so like reflective and thoughtful, but somehow it also simultaneously does not give enough thought and reflection to some of the massive events that happened this season.
Happened within it, yeah.
It's kind of crazy that like
Jaehaerys'
Prince
death just
Jaehaerys
goes.
was murdered in front of Queen Helena, and it's kind of not mentioned again very often at all. Eric and Arik kill each other bloodily in front of Rhaenyra, and then they're never mentioned again.
Yeah, but like
after like episode 3,
those events thematically loom over the rest of the season. But I completely get what you mean. No one's talking about all the crazy shit that happens, and like even Rhaenys' death is brought up like 2 or 3 times. This is a main character.
It feels as though those events have not had an impact on the story. Like Rhaenyra repeatedly, after each fresh catastrophe, Rhaenyra was like, well, that does it this time. This time I'm serious. I'm getting on my dragon this time.
But what would you have me do?
Yeah. And then she doesn't do it. So I think that's part of the problem. Like they both don't acknowledge these events enough in dialogue, but they also don't have enough consequences.
So here's the thing. Season 2 is like reflective and contemplative about season 1. Is season 3 going to give us like, are we just delayed? Are all these characters doomed to only think about the things that are happening one season in retrospect?
Alicent and Rhaenyra's conversation this episode, it's about season 1.
And that makes sense because season 1 comprised most of their lives and they have this massive relationship that they need to talk about. But like so much shit has happened in the past couple of weeks that they don't really touch on. Daemon is like thinking about the whole 50 fucking years of his life in this season that he doesn't really have the time to think about the last few weeks.
And there's probably a sense of realism in that. Like a war like this is such a whirlwind. Traumatic events happening in rapid succession.
But that's not really how narratives work, is it?
Yeah, there is a realism to it, but it doesn't make it a satisfying narrative. Hey, Sunfire is dead.
He thinks he is. Maybe he's intuiting it.
Is there a magic bond connection? I think of like when Rhaenyra was giving birth to the stillborn baby and she had those visions of Cyrax screaming and growling and it would be cool to see Aegon experiencing some of that kind of dragon bond magic.
Theory time. What if that wasn't Cyrax and it was the baby? Like that was Visenya that Rhaenyra was seeing. Because, you know, there's this association between Targaryen, their twisted offspring that sometimes happen and, you know, half human, half dragon abominations.
Yeah, and the stillborn baby Visenya does look all kind of scaly and weird, so...
Just like Daenerys's dragon baby, Rhaego.
Yeah, and I think from memory, those visions of Cyrax, like Cyrax did look young. Like it didn't look like
it
adult
doesn't
Cyrax.
look like Cyrax.
It reminds me of the whole bloody like grayscale. Like I was not expecting so much conversation about grayscale around House of the Dragon season 1, but like the stillborn baby Visenya, like its weird skin, it looked kind of like grayscale, and like the crab feeder had grayscale, and Daemon has that scar that some people said looks like grayscale. A lot of grayscale talk. Weird.
Sea Smoke has grey scales.
Oh, fuck off. All right, so
Oh, I love that Laris tells Aegon he's not alone.
that's what makes me think that Laris really does love Aegon.
Maybe not love.
Yeah,
maybe,
I mean-
maybe he's getting there with love.
Probably the
Does
wrong
Laris
word.
have love?
But he certainly sees Aegon as like being like himself and wanting to sort of mentor Aegon for that reason.
Yeah, you're just not going to be who you were. You have to recontextualize your role in society.
Aegon's cock is destroyed. It burst like a sausage on the spit.
I love this because like that was so important to him.
Yes.
It makes complete sense that he's fixated on it.
Like Theon's favorite toy. And it is hilarious that Aegon the Dragon Cock now has neither a dragon
Yeah.
nor a cock.
What's really hilarious is that we were theorizing about this earlier. Does Aegon do his genitals work? And the show is telling us.
Yeah, people were saying that we were silly for talking so much about Aegon's Schrodinger's penis, but as it turns out, his penis is important enough to mention in
The
show.
penis that was promised.
The schlong that was
Go on.
long.
The sausage that ever was.
The sausage that ever was. Yeah. I guess we'll talk about Maelor in the spoiler zone.
Sure. Laris like continues to try to comfort Aegon. Don't worry, we're going to figure it all out. Life's going to be okay. He's like, I can't pee.
The absurdity of trying to do war when there are these very real experiences and realities that we're neglecting. It's like, what is it all for?
What gets him on board with Laris's plan is when Aegon realizes, like when he's called Aegon the Victorious, Aegon the Rebuilder, Aegon the Realm's Delight. It's one of the best lines in the season, I think, is when Aegon realizes that he can have that love that he felt from the small folk in season 1, episode 9 when he was at the coronation. His self-worth can come from adoration from the people.
Yeah.
And it also frames Rhaenyra, whose nickname is the Realm's Delight in her early life in the books and also a little bit in the show. It's sort of unclear. Rhaenyra to Aegon is this like far off monolith of what it means to be loved, because both of his parents loved Rhaenyra and neglected him.
I agree with that entirely. It makes me feel like there needs to be a scene between Aegon and Rhaenyra.
I think that when Aegon and Rhaenyra have never spoken on screen, and I think that when they do, it's probably going to be incredible.
I would love it if Aegon and Rhaenyra spoke and they actually got along, because they are like ostensibly the two people on either side of this war. And if they just like got along and they're like, yeah, we could have completely averted this whole thing, because like the show is largely about how Alicent and Rhaenyra just need to be allowed to work together and then they could avoid the conflict. But it would be funny if Aegon also is part of that. Like just them talking about how much their dad fucked them both up would be fantastic.
And both of their like fraught relationships with Alicent.
So Laris makes like the same pitch that Illyrio makes in Game of Thrones. We will allow Westeros to be torn apart by war and we will exploit that to then walk in and take over it, which, you know, Varys is also involved in that with young Griff in the books. So it's a very Laris-Varys parallel.
I also like can't help but mention that this is so much like Laris's father helping Aegon's father. Lionel Strong was sort of Viserys' dad in those few episodes.
Yeah, well, he was the grown up in the room despite Viserys being older, yeah. So yeah, I think that this Laris Aegon scene is one of the best scenes in this episode.
Pretty good.
Hey, look, it's Rhaena in the Vale.
What fun.
Did she bring any snacks?
Well, what was in that satchel?
Yeah.
These are the questions the show has us asking.
Some mutton, mayhaps? It's a pretty cool bag, actually.
Yeah, can I buy that at the WB shop?
That's even cooler than Damon's handbag.
Oh, I don't know about that. Her ass does not know where it is.
Did she get a lot of orienteering training when she was growing up in Pentos? So there's about like 5 or 6 1-minute long scenes with Rhaena across these last few episodes.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it should have just been like one big thing? This is the Rhaena section.
I mean, if there was like an episode that was like the Rhaena episode, because I mean, this also ends with like this tease where like Rhaena finds the dragon sheep stealer, but we don't even know if she claims sheep stealer.
They just have a staring contest.
It just feels like very little happens with Rhaena. Part of the point of like stretching these tiny scenes, scattering them across multiple episodes, I think is to convey that she's been out there for a long time. Like it's to show know that she didn't just walk out into a field and find sheep stealer. It actually has taken her time, and she suffered, and she slept overnight, and there's deprivation. Like,
she's been through hell to find this dragon.
yeah, I think it sort of conveys that, I guess. Jace.
Harry Collette's like brooding has like gone up to the next level. He's really knocking it out of the park with the brooding.
Ulf is playing hooky. He's meant to be at dragon school, but instead he's eating fish.
And Hugh's like, come on, we've got to go to school or we'll get in trouble.
Yeah, Ulf's like Hugh is like the Hermione. He's like trying to get him to go to magic class. Jace is insecure that these Targaryen bastards of uncertain parentage have dragons because that feels like a political threat to him. And Ulf is rude to Jace.
Well, he doesn't realize that that's the prince because, you know, he doesn't look like a Targaryen.
Yeah, I mean, he does sort of continue to be a bit rude even after he realizes that.
Yeah, but like Ulf is absolutely the fish out of water. He just has no idea how to navigate this. But also it doesn't feel like he wants to know.
I mean, we saw in King's Landing, like, this is his thing. Like, he's sort of a rabble rouser and he's playful, and that is his survival strategy. That's how he got all those free drinks and presumably some food as well. I mean,
by being a bit of a cheeky cunt. I really like that Ulf is sort of trying to relate to Jace. He's like, I don't have the right hair, you don't have the right hair, but we're both Targaryens, we're both dragon riders, we're made from the same cloth, you and I. And he thinks that he's like relating himself to Jace when really he's just telling Jace, you need to fucking kill me, man. which is a really interesting parallel to Joffrey Lonmouth and Kristen Cole in episode 5 of season 1 when Joffrey's like, I know your little secret. Don't worry, you're safe with me because we're in the feudal system and it's cool to have secrets and we can have a little alliance. And Kristen interprets that as you need to kill me.
I think that Ulf has to be okay at reading people. Like,
yeah,
Ulf must, like, Jace is not hiding how mad he is.
Yeah.
Like, can Ulf possibly be blind to how much Jace hates what he's saying? I don't know. I don't know. I think it. Yeah,
I think he could. I think people can be that tone deaf.
Yeah. In the previous episode, Ulf was saying Jace is the rightful heir to the throne and he's my nephew and like I'm proud of him and I support him. But he meets the guy and they hate each other.
Yeah.
Jace threatens to feed Ulf's corpse to the dogs.
Oh, that dog.
Which of the two dogs? The cheese dog or the other dog?
It's one dog. What was the point of the dog?
He was going to meet up with a monkey. That's the spin-off I want to see. Like, I don't know about the E.T. show, the Nine Voyages show, but the monkey and the dog show, I would watch that.
It's certainly a better idea than the Jon Snow spin-off.
I also found it funny how Ulf's like playing with his fingers. I don't know like who sent out the memo, but someone told every actor in House of the Dragon that you need to act with your hands to express discomfort. Maybe it's because they couldn't change the script, so they're like, okay, the only way that we can add additional context is through moving our fingers. Doc scene!
Woo!
Rhaenyra is doubting and hesitating. Why does Rhaenyra have doubts when like the previous episode was about her erasing her doubts and seizing fire?
It's really crazy to me that this is the first time we're seeing Rhaenyra after that shot on Dragonstone where she's surrounded by her dragons in the most powerful situations that she's ever had. Yeah,
this seems like a different character who has not had that experience.
I really don't like this scene.
She should be brimming with fire. This is the first conversation since Rhaenyra made Corlys her hand.
Between the two of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have not had a conversation since then. And they have never talked about Laenor. They have never talked about Rhaenys. They've never talked about Luke. There's so much that they've never talked about. And in this conversation, they're talking about fucking Dreamfire? I mean, yeah, that is a conversation that needs to happen. Like, talking about Dreamfire is necessary, but there's so much baggage and emotion that should be bringing Corlys and Rhaenys into loggerheads and conflict, but there's no conflict here.
I think
there's no conflict here.
I think that's what I really dislike about this scene is that it's very clearly just here to move the specific parts of the plot along that it needs to and address nothing else.
This is not a finale type scene.
No.
Why is this in the finale? It's almost as though they chopped off the finale when they changed it to 8 episodes.
Hopefully that means season 3 is going to start like incredibly.
Yeah, well, Ryan said that season 3 will start with the climax that was cut off season 2. So,
will that make season 3 really awkward, having a climax at the beginning and then presumably another climax at the end? I mean, if the episode count doesn't get slashed again.
Will that do the same thing to the Winds of Winter? A lot of what happens this season is excellent setup for the climax that was meant to be this season that got moved to season 3. And by the time season 3 comes out in 2 years,
everyone will have forgotten.
They will have forgotten the context. And everyone will have to watch that dunce Alt-Shift-X to remember remember what happened in the prior 2 seasons.
If he can even be bothered to get a what you need to know video out next season.
Old Shift X didn't even do a recap for season 2. What's that about?
Yeah, he is lazy.
Thought you were too busy eating burritos with George Martin? You square?
Oh, let's not throw too much shade at that specific
Hang on,
interaction.
weren't you at that burrito meet? All right.
Yeah, I burst out of the shadows. I'm going to tell this story on mic. I was in the bathroom when George showed up.
Rhaenyra and Corlys talk about dragons and I mean what I don't like about this is so much of this is exposition telling us things that have already been made so abundantly clear.
Yeah.
Corlys says in this scene, "Oh, I regret that I don't know Adam very well." It's like, yeah, we
did
know.
that.
That's what you've said in every scene this season.
You said that it was said to us in a much nicer way in the previous episode with that awkward scene between Corlys and Adam.
Yeah, like they showed and now they're telling. And it's like, you did that. And also Corlys is saying, "Hey, Rhaenyra, you have an advantage now." And it's like, we saw!
Yeah, that was very clearly the conclusion of the previous episode.
At the end of the prior episode, 14 minutes ago, we saw she has the dragon. So it's just odd. Oh, I hope that my dragons are a deterrent so I don't have to fight. It's like, that's what you've been saying all season. And I thought it was changing when you became the cult leader with the fire, but no.
I sort of do love this one line, this little detail where Rhaenyra says, "The third brother is untested." She doesn't know Daeron's name.
She acts as though she genuinely has never considered Dreamfire as a threat.
Yeah.
It's like, Rhaenyra, you just brought 3 new dragons onto the board. She just said, "We have done the impossible." She's repeatedly saying, "We've done the impossible. We've gotten these dragons on side." And she can't conceive that Dreamfire might be relevant.
Yeah, the Greens have 2 actual Targaryen dragon riders already that just haven't been employed in the war yet.
She spent all this time rallying more dragons, and she's surprised when the other dragons are brought up. I don't know.
The writers sort of show their ass when it's like, oh, Dreamfire comes up later in the episode, so we need to mention her earlier in the episode.
If they want to make Helena not ride her dragon, fine. But I would like a scene exploring why.
I would love it if Helena's if she still had a deep relationship with Dreamfire, but it was just like not riding related. They just hung out together.
And like, yeah, like maybe that is the case, but they haven't showed us. So I think a way to show us, at some point this season, prior to this episode, Helena should have gone to the dragon pit, approached Dreamfire hesitantly. Dreamfire looks beautiful, you know, blue and pale and slender, and Helena reaches and touches Dreamfire, and then she gets a flash of a horrifying vision.
Yeah.
So maybe it's those dead dragons on the battlefield. Maybe it's a White Walker scene from a distance, not the fucking close-up shot of fucking chilly boots, frosted pants who we saw in this episode. But like just like a brief ominous flash, and then Helena goes, "Ah, that's so scary," and then she leaves. And then it's like, okay.
That's why she doesn't want to ride the dragon.
That's why she doesn't want to ride the dragon, because the dragon whose name is Dreamfire maybe causes her psychic dreams, and the dreams are scary, so Helena doesn't want to ride the dragon. So that would be perfectly logical. It fits like the magic and the logic of this world. It's just a brief scene. It doesn't have to cost much. It doesn't have to take much time.
Well, see, I don't know about that, because you're describing close-up shots of a new dragon who we haven't seen on screen before, so presumably the models don't exist.
We're going to see Dreamfire at some point.
Yeah, but we haven't yet, and the thing, like, the consideration of this entire scene appears to have been budgetary.
It fucking sucks, man. And yeah, I think you're right, because yeah, the showrunner Ryan Condal was saying in basically as many words that budgetary restrictions were shaping this season and were a concern, and that's part of why the climax was cut.
Why do you think all of these scenes are on the docks at high tide, which is shot in the back lot of the Warner Brothers set in Hertfordshire?
No one wanted it to be like this. Like, it sucks to say, but no one wanted this season to...
This isn't what it was supposed to look like.
No,
this wasn't anyone's vision.
Corlys makes a lot of sense when he says, "Hey, you got to act right now." What does Rhaenyra do? She fucking changes the subject to talk about his boat.
I wish it were not so. It's very transparent. It's just like, let's move on now.
Rhaenyra is hesitant to go to war because she doesn't want to risk her children. So, like, I wish that she would say that as a way of helping us to understand.
It was mentioned previously, but a reiteration here wouldn't go amiss.
They've got sacks now. They were doing arrows, but now they're doing sacks.
Are those sandbags for storm purposes, or are they like
sacks.
wheat? What's in the sacks?
Oh, I want to know.
The Queen
who
never was which is really funny because Rhaenys didn't seem to give a shit about legacy.
Yeah, there were a lot of scenes when Rhaenys said, please stop doing voyages and please stop doing wars. And now Corlys is like, I'm naming my voyage warship after Rhaenys. And like Rhaenys in
This
heaven
is what she would have wanted. I'm doing this for her.
But I think that the point still stands, which is that he's trying to acknowledge others instead of himself. Can he just like acknowledge Alan and Adam, please, already?
His wife wanted him to.
Yeah. Like she basically gave him her blessing to acknowledge Adam and Alan. You need to deal with the Lannister army and the Hightower army. So like you can interpret that as Corlys is saying you should go and burn the Lannister and Hightower armies.
But not the cities.
The way I interpret that is the Lannisters and the Hightowers are coming, therefore you should...
Yeah, just do this now. Go to King's Landing now, today.
Yeah,
go.
He says crush the beast at its head. The head
That's Aemond.
is not the Lannisters and the Hightowers. Yeah, it's Aemond. So I feel like the logical thing for Rhaenyra to do is to go and kill Aemond and Vhagar.
Or just like send Adam and Hugh and Ulf. Off you go. Bye-bye. Have fun. Why is it an issue that we need to not explode King's Landing, but it's fine to go explode Old Town and Lannisport?
The Lannister army is not in Lannisport. The Hightower army is not in Old Town.
Yeah, they're both on the way to the Riverlands / the Crownlands.
As a strategy for Rhaenyra,
it's bonkers.
It is bonkers.
Go burn Jason Lannister's army near Harrenhal. Go burn the Hightower army. Like, she doesn't know that Targaryon's with them, right? Go burn them wherever they are. And then just go kill Vhagar. Like, it's easy. Simples.
I mean, one of the points that Rhaenyra made a couple of episodes ago is I was not trained for war. I was not taught war strategy, and I'm frustrated by that. I mean, it'd be cool if Daemon, when she talks to Daemon at Harrenhal, Daemon's like, no, that's a bad plan. Why would you go to Lannisport and let's just kill Aemond instead?
In fact, why am I taking my army to the Riverlands? Why don't I just go to... Oh.
Why do we need armies? Why don't we just use the dragons?
The 11 billion dragons we suddenly have.
But Rhaenyra is convinced by Corlys that she needs to attack. She just
misses the mark.
Target, yeah. Canonically, Caraxes prefers eating pigs.
I think that I really like this Aaron Sorkin-ass shot of Daemon traipsing through Harrenhal. He's sort of doing a little bit of his military duties as he goes. It just feels like he's more capable and in action now.
Yeah, it feels like he's out of his like drug-fueled haze and he's now like part of the world and is trying to
This is where he belongs. This guy was born to be a general. Then Alfred Broom shows up and he's like, oh, that's fucking, I get it.
Daemon only cares about people insofar as they reflect what his direct family members are up to. So he doesn't really see Alfred as a person. He sees Alfred as an extension of Rhaenyra.
Yeah, Rhaenyra sent a tendril to Harrenhal.
Because Daemon has childishly, resolutely been not replying to Rhaenyra's texts this entire season. So he's suitably amused that Rhaenyra sent Alfred here.
Yeah, it's sort of like she caved first.
Presumably Daemon's Riverlord army could smash Glenn and Kristen's army. Especially seeing as Daemon has Caraxes.
Yeah, which I guess is the plan for countering Vhagar when he gets to King's Landing. So, I will be killed by Vhagar. It'll be awesome.
And Alfred says, I don't believe in Rhaenyra, and I think that you should take power instead, Daemon.
Yeah, and then he has the tree whispers traitor to him. It might be the tree, it might not be the tree. I don't know. It's something like that. It's fucking Harrenhal bullshit. And I love that Daemon's like, yeah, that happens.
Yeah, I like how Daemon has become accustomed to it in the same way that like Alice and Simon is. It's kind of like, yes, the world is inscrutable and you've just got to learn to roll with it. That's the only thing that you can do.
Yeah, and like having Alfred show up and he's like, what the fuck is going on here? And then now Daemon's the fish in the water, right?
Yeah.
He's now, he gets it.
Yeah, Daemon is the new
We see
Alice.
a contrast of a newcomer.
So do you think the voice from the tree is Bran from the future talking to Matt Smith?
Talking to Matt Smith. The actor.
I think this might be Bran. Because in the books, Greenseers can speak through the trees and they can do it across time and space. So this kind of kookiness happens and Daemon doesn't commit either way. So the point is that this is setting up the question of will Daemon be loyal to Rhaenyra or will he betray her?
Where do you think he's at when Alfred's like, you should be the king? What do you think he's thinking?
He's still considering it. Like, if he was totally against it, he would just cut off Alfred's head right now.
Yeah, I think, as we said in the previous episode, you know, that question, when Viserys offers him the crown, do you still want this? Is this what you want to be? That question still hasn't been resolved yet.
And I like how Alfred, like, they're not playing him as some scheming villain who wants power for himself.
Yeah, he's sort of like just a guy who pathetically wants to try and find a good way to get stuff done.
He's saying the truth when he says, I believe Rhaenyra's intentions are good.
But I don't think she can get it done. I think that you need to do it.
And it is sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy where like Alfred's like, well, I believe in Rhaenyra, but I believe that the men of the realm will not follow a woman, they'll follow a man. So it becomes like this self-fulfilling prophecy. We also see in this episode that Daemon is a more capable war leader than Rhaenyra is.
Yeah, she doesn't even know to not burn down Lannisport for no reason.
Which, of course, is also related to their differing upbringings because of their sexes. It all goes back and back. I think it's very funny to see someone lurk in the most like outrageous drip that's ever been seen this side of the God's Eye.
Yeah.
And then I like how Simon is like loyal to Rhaenyra, who he's never met. And he's like, well, better text the queen. It's like, oh, good for you, Simon. Aemond gets informed that like 100 people left his city and went to the Pretender.
The wheels have fallen off the Green Council.
I really want Aemond to be incredulous here because this is such a massive failure of security and intelligence.
Like threatened to hang Jasper Wilde because you haven't told me this. Why didn't you tell me that Seasmoke had a rider? You fools!
And Aemond says, well, search every fishing boat. Now that the horse is bolted, I'm going to close the gate. You see how Jasper doesn't trust or believe in Aemond. He's so isolated now. Helena says, why do they blame us for the blockade?
I didn't do anything. Why did they throw a fish at you, Mum?
One of the fundamental problems that causes this war is that Alicent has not taught any of her children anything useful. Like none of her children have gotten the parenting that they needed. So
was Alicent equipped to do that? Like, what does she know that she could impart upon? Like, was she trained in how to run a fucking war? But then Aemond kicks her off the small camp. Like, she tries in this season.
Yeah, I mean, Alicent was put in the same position. And that's why it's so heartbreaking that Helena says, I was happier before I was queen.
Yeah, I think in this scene, Alicent's talking to a younger version of herself, just like the scene in episode 8 of season 1 when she's talking to Diana. But here it's even more apparent because, you know, she did in like every sense create Helena. She gave birth to her. She made her queen by marrying her to Aegon instead of Jace. Alicent is looking at herself, but in a situation that she created, in the same way that Otto created her. They must kill her because I was happier before I was queen.
It's a reflection on Alicent's suffering and Alicent's guilt for being complicit in her daughter's suffering. But I really like when Alicent says, hey, like, what say we just make like a tree and get out of here?
Do you want to get out of here? And Helena's like, what? We postulated on how often does Alicent get to leave the keep, get to leave the city? When was the last time she did it? Fucking Helena.
Yeah.
Like she was at the Driftmark funeral and that's it.
She's practically nailed to the floor. Alicent's like, yeah, I went camping. I went swimming. It was great. And Helena's like, what's swimming?
Is that water out the window, I think?
I thought this was like a sound stage. I didn't know. It's just like the Truman Show. Like, I didn't know you could leave this building. And I think this might be the first time we see Helena smile in like the entire season.
And her saying, where would I go? That's sort of her saying, well, I don't really have a vision of my own personal, like, I don't know. Was that an option? Am I supposed to have thought of that? Because she's been cast into this political role, again, exactly like Alicent, where her personal desires are just of no consequence.
But I mean, young Alicent at least had Rhaenyra as like an alternative vision of how to live. Helena doesn't even have that.
Yeah.
Although, of course, you know, Helena has a dragon, and one of the things that dragons represent is freedom and being able to go anywhere. And so it's kind of interesting that Helena seems to like reject her dragon. Like in the books, you get the sense that Helena is like a mother and like she's really tied to this place by her children. Whereas we don't see Helena with her children except for that one time and that other one time.
Maybe knowledge restricts her.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things I like that she says this episode is that, like, Aemond could kill Helena, but it wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you've seen the future, you've seen the past, it's like, what's the point of making choices?
Yeah, knowledge is power, and as is made quite obvious in this episode, power is sort of restrictive.
I like seeing Alice cry this episode. Like Helena, she sees visions of the future and past, and it also seems to cripple her. And she also doesn't seem to go anywhere. She just seems paralyzed by her knowledge, her terrible knowledge.
She went to Riverrun to kill an old man, though. I'm here to heal your Grover.
I'm here to put some drugs in your Muppet. It's like, you let her in to heal the Lord Paramount?
Well, nothing else was working.
And then he died, and then you let her go?
Well, yeah, she gave it her best.
I flew in through your window in the form of an owl. I flew in your window with some Nurofen for the Muppet.
Why is there never any aspirin in the forest? It's because the parrots eat them all. A round of applause for Rickard Thorne, everyone.
Rickard Thorne. Got a collarbone.
I also noticed her collarbone in this shot.
So then Prince Aemond bursts in like Kramer. It's really funny how he brings Rickard to introduce him as though like he needs to be introduced to his own
Presenting
mother.
Aemond Targaryen.
The lengths that like Aemond will go to not have to speak to his mother includes bringing an old man to introduce him for himself.
Do you think Aemond was waiting outside that door like for a Kingsguard to walk past? You introduce me. I was just going to bed.
Helena is the only person with her priorities straight, with the possible exception of Shirako Lohar.
I mean,
isn't that great? The two most normal people in this show are Helena and Shirako Lohar.
what's so normal about Shirako Lohar?
She has fun in Monkey Island.
Fair enough, yeah.
The only person making good decisions is the person having fun on Monkey Island.
Yeah. We see Rhaenyra have a few naps, and I just think that makes her more relatable.
And then she feeds 40 people to the fires. Aemond says, no, actually, it's not bedtime. It's dragon battle time.
We've talked a lot about how Daemon appears to be completely tone deaf to other people's feelings, but actually, he's really tuned into how other people are feeling. Do you think that it's actually true of Aemond?
Yes, I think it is. I think that Aemond looked at Daemon and said, yeah, I'll be that, but unironically.
And I think that's why we see Daemon wearing the eye patch in that vision earlier in the season. It's Daemon realizing what his aesthetics, like what influence that has on the young people in his life.
Yeah, I mean, it's a show about parenting and about kids and what kids learn from parents and what parents learn from their parents. I know we've been bitching a lot. I really like this show, and I even really like this episode.
Yeah, me too. There are some scenes that I genuinely dislike. There are some things that I just don't like, but I really like most of this show and most of this episode.
My deep exasperation is directly proportional to my love. I would not be this pissed off if I didn't love the show so much.
Yeah.
But it makes me real pissed off at the bits that they mess up. Can you see that vein popping on Alicent's neck?
Look at that acting.
Oh my God.
Liv was just actually angry at Ewan in this shot, wasn't she?
What happened? Alicent is just burning every bridge at this point. She's like, I no longer give a fuck what anyone's saying.
What bridge is there between her and Aemond? Aemond already burnt it. She tried. She was like, okay, I know you're firing me, but you need to fucking listen. And he just turned his nose down and went off and killed 1,000 people for no reason. Of course she's going to be acting up at him.
And this argument and this failure to connect is part of what leads to her deciding to leave the continent with Helena and not with Aemond. Like she has decided that Aemond is unsalvageable.
Yeah, I don't think it's any coincidence that the very next thing that we see is Alicent talking to Orwyle about getting out of here. There are two Ottoisms that Alicent sort of has to accept in this episode, and the first one is like quite clearly in episode 5 he says that you have to understand that for Rhaenyra to stay alive she has to kill your children. That is the only way that's going to, and like Otto sort of like breathed life into that anyway. Like was that going to be true if Otto hadn't done things that he ended up doing? And the other thing is that Aemond is what Otto feared Daemon would be, because Aemond is planning on killing Aegon.
I like that so much because like for the whole of season 1 the Greens were like, we are the adults in the room, we are dutiful and we have control over our family and we're not going to be chaotic and violent like the Blacks are.
Anyway.
And then they just became even worse than the Blacks are.
I really like that Otto brought into existence both of those two great fears he had, that Rhaenyra would have to kill Alicent's children and that the king's brother was going to kill him for the crown. Both of those things happened because of Otto's actions in some way.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the notion of self-fulfilling prophecy is so relevant throughout this season.
Oh, yeah.
Because all these things are coming to pass after being feared. And all of these like self-fulfilling prophecies exist parallel to actual mystical prophecies. This ultimately is a tragedy. Like Alicent and Aemond are both saying true things. Like Aemond is like, we are in a war. We need Helena's dragon to win this war or we will die. Alicent's point is that it's not worth winning if we just kill and become monsters and the violence continues. And like, so they both are making very...
Yeah, do you want to turn Helena into you? Are you serious?
And again, like Aemond faces away.
Yeah, I really love this shot.
With the eye patch face towards his mother. Like he just can't look at her. He can't face her. Despite how scary and powerful he is, he can't face his mother. Despite their clear love for each other, despite their clear need for each other, they just cannot reconcile.
That eye patch and that scar represent Alicent's inability to protect her son. And here she is lecturing him about having to protect Helena. Like, how must that feel for him?
True. Yeah, I mean, she says, oh, what if Helena's mind is broken? It's like, Aemond is broken.
I think that's what she's saying to him. Like, look at what happened to you. How can we possibly think of letting that happen to her?
Aemond has always tried his best to do his duty, and he still feels like he's still scorned.
I wonder, is there anyone else in this show who fits that description? Is there anyone else in this shot who fits that description?
So Orwyle is...
he's weighing up his...
options. Maybe that is symbolically what he's doing. He's weighing up his options. He's weighing up the greens versus the blacks.
Yeah. Or he's weighing up Aemond and Aegon and Alicent. I really like this this set here. It reminds me of Pycelle's workshop in season 1 of Game of Thrones, which was one of my favorite locations, but it only showed up like once or twice. Despite
what we've said about them reusing the dock scene like 15 times, they created this whole Maester's Lab set for this like 5-second shot, basically.
So Alicent asks Orwyle to get her through the blockade somehow. I can do that.
wait, you came to me? You think I can do that?
Yeah, and Orwyle must be realizing that, oh my God, she is really out of options.
and this is after Orwyle has like rejected Alicent at least once prior, like when Alicent was saying, hey Orwyle, you're the Grand Maester. Who do you think the king wanted as heir? And Orwyle's like, I don't know. Why would I know that? I'm only the Grand Maester on the King's Council for all those years.
Sorry, I'm in a tunnel, Alicent. I can't talk.
You're breaking up. But the fact that Alicent comes to him again really shows her desperation.
And belief that he's actually going to be useful, that he's actually a good guy who can help her.
It is ridiculous and implausible that Orwyle could get Queen Alicent through Aemon's new security and through the Velaryon blockade. But I do like how, Aegon called Orwyle a good man, and now we're asking, okay, what does it mean to be a good man?
The physical mechanics of Alicent getting to Dragonstone bother me, of course. And, Tylan got the Tyrosh somehow, and, it's a little question mark looming over the series, which I dislike, but it's in service of shit I do like.
The problem is that this scene happens right after Aemon said, okay, we're increasing security because I don't want anyone in a boat getting out of King's Landing. And then right after, Alicent says, we're getting to King's Landing. It's like,
I will take a boat to Dragonstone.
There's a certain number of times when you're allowed to pull this shit, and they've used it up too many times. They've done it too many times. Maybe it only should have been one Alicent Rhaenyra secret conversation, not two.
I see the utility of the scene. I really like what happens there. But I do see what you're saying about, flexing that boundary of believability a bit too much. Maybe they should have established that Corlys's fleet was a little understaffed. Just there aren't enough ships to get the whole gullet all at once, so it is possible to get through.
You know what?
Something like that.
They should have had a scene where Aemon flies the Velaryon blockade. He's like, this is a huge problem for me, so I'm going to burn it with my dragon, which is the obvious thing that you would try. So he goes there, he burns a bunch of Velaryon ships, but then, Corlys got some scorpions, and he's got scorpions on his boat, like Euron did, and he throws a scorpion bolt, and it hits Vhagar, and Vhagar goes, I hate this. Don't make me do this. And Aemon's like, okay, I guess I'd better retreat. And so he's like, oh, that's why I need to get the Triarchy. Why didn't they do that?
What we need is more scenes of other ships in the fleet being way too barnacled to be operating the blockade.
Hey, look, it's your favorite scene.
It is.
It's Chris.
How did Criston Cole become one of my most exciting characters to see on screen?
I loved it. Like you were saying, I don't know if Fabian's a good actor. And then he just drops 3 of your favorite scenes this season.
He's won every Emmy from me this season.
I'm puzzled to know why Gwaine is so confident.
Because he has Alicent's boob handkerchief.
Yeah, but lots of boob handkerchiefs get handed out like hot pretzels at a baseball game. Remember at the tournament when Alicent gave her handkerchief to Daemon? That doesn't mean that they were fucking.
Or does it?
Well, actually, that is a rumor.
That's a mushroom thing, yeah.
But just because he has her favor doesn't mean they're fucking, and just because he's huffing it also doesn't mean that they're fucking.
Maybe Gwaine just has a better read on people than you.
I do love how Criston has a sword an inch from his neck, and he doesn't react at all.
Oh, he doesn't care.
Which perfectly...
Kill me and it won't matter.
Yeah, it fits the point of his scene, which is that he's hashtag ready to die.
And it's like what Helena says to Aemon later. Like, you could kill me, but whatever. Like, it wouldn't change anything.
I love how he says, I think of nothing but my oaths, which like expresses something that I think we kind of already know about Kristen, but it encapsulates it so well. She saved me twice.
Yeah, maybe like trying to get Gwaine to understand his position in their relationship.
Yeah, I mean,
like, it's not just I'm taking advantage of your sister or whatever you think it is. Like, there's something here. I needed her.
I think it really hammers home that Kristen has wanted to die since season 1.
Since episode 4, like when he had sex with Rhaenyra.
Yeah, he's basically wanted to die ever since he had sex with Rhaenyra, yeah, which is sobering stuff.
He's got 99 problems and the bitches are all of them.
Desire for women has
brought me nothing but grief.
Brought me nothing but grief, which is like, okay, Kristen, but is it the desire that has ruined your life, or is it the sex and murders that you did? Is it possible that your behavior has caused these problems for you? But he's like, no. It's just because those women are too hot, man. Kristen really externalizes his behaviors. He blames everyone else for his behaviors instead of taking responsibility. He's like, no, it's because of the oaths. It's because these women are so hot. It's because of everyone but me.
He should have a chat with Daemon about that.
He should get therapy.
Do you think Daemon would be a good therapist? No, he needs to go to the rehabilitation center at Harrenhal, eat some human flesh and have some dreams about his past selves and see the vision of the apocalypse, and then he'll be on the right track.
I would watch an entire TV show of just like Dr. Rivers' therapy is in session. I feel really sorry for Kristen. Like, I think that he's wrong to not take responsibility for his actions.
He was wrong to kill that man.
Yeah, I think he maybe just should not have murdered Joffrey and not have murdered Lyman and not have had sex with Alicent. The Rhaenyra situation was perhaps a bit more tricky, but I think that he's responsible for a lot of his problems. But I mean, you know, in this situation that he's in, it's like, well, of course he's so paralyzed by guilt and paralyzed by fear. You know, the sword of Damocles has been hanging above his head. He could still be executed at any moment for his various crimes. And of course that drives him to blame everyone but himself. And of course it makes him kind of welcome death.
I like that he says that Alicent is the beacon that he follows, because the High Tower's got a beacon. It's a lighthouse. Yeah,
I like, you know, they call the Lannisters lions and they call the Starks wolves. It's a little bit harder to call a High Tower a beacon, but they find a way of doing it. Like, they find a way of working the house heraldry. Yeah, fucking Kristen says, no, all men are corrupt. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're a lot more corrupt than most, Kristen.
In the same way that Daemon says everyone's capable of depravity, it's like, okay, but you're really capable of depravity. Yeah. Everyone can be pushed to depravity by circumstances, by the people around them, by themselves. And it's just that Daemon has been, it's that Kristen has been, and that you could be too.
Yeah, I guess it's a free will thing, you know? It's saying that, well, maybe any person in these particular circumstances of extremes would also be pushed to extremes. And yeah, maybe there is truth in that.
Or maybe true honor is a mist that melts in the morning, which, whoa, what a gorgeous line.
Because it calls back to his conversation with Alicent when she asks if his loyalty is just a dew that melts away in the morning. So he's haunted by Alicent's last words to him. I love the like sad boy poetry element of this.
Yeah.
Like, it's just this sad guy. All he's been doing is just writing sad poetry on his Wattpad for the last month. He's kind of an overgrown teenager, you know?
Absolutely.
He's like a teenager in a man's body.
Absolutely.
I mean, they say that like when like your defining, like shaping experiences happen, that's the age that you're frozen at forever.
Yeah.
And his like defining moment was joining the Kingsguard and having sex with Rhaenyra. And he's just been developmentally stunted since then.
When do you think Daemon was stuck in stone? Because that's what he's gone through this season, is like being unstuck from stone. Is it when he claimed Caraxes? Is it when his father died? Is it when Viserys became king? I think it would have been that.
I think it's when he got the sword Dark Sister.
Oh God, it'd be so cool to see that section of Targaryen history.
I would watch the hell out of a prequel to this prequel.
I don't have a philosophy. I'm edgy like that.
Don't you love just seeing two dudes talk about philosophy in the woods?
Yeah, pointing swords at each other and then chatting about fucking Nietzsche.
This is like my entire 20s.
I've been talking about dragons on the internet this whole time. What have I been doing?
Fool. Men are like dust under their feet. Kristen is so happy to get this poetic language spoken. He's just been like writing this in his journal for all these months.
And then
now
suddenly
he's like,
Gawain Hightower's pointed the sword at him. It's time to bring out my monologue.
yeah, our fine endeavors are of nothing. And also you get the sense like the painful part of this, Kristen has no one to talk to.
Yeah.
He tried to talk to Alicent. He tried to tell Alicent, hey, like, I saw men on fire and I'm really upset. And she's like, oh, you fucking saw men on fire, did you idiot? Like, she was like, she was accidentally so mean. And now Kristen wants to die.
We march now toward our annihilation. Isn't that chipper?
This guy's the scariest person on the show.
Yeah.
Like, Damon does a lot of big performative, I am a scary badass, but then he's like crying about his brother every second
there's
episode.
So much on the inside of Damon, but what Kristen's saying here is like, there's nothing here. There's nothing back here.
Kristen's willing to die and he's willing to bring everyone else down with him.
Nothing matters, and therefore I'll do whatever. Doesn't matter.
The way Kristen says, don't you think? Like, as though it's the most normal, obvious thing. Like, there's
he's just said that he's been on a psychopathic rant.
He's just overwhelmingly numb. Like, it's just empty and numb. Like, there's no heart left in him to even want to try to live. It's really scary. And I love it because it's such a good contrast to, like, anger. It's such a good contrast to, like, justice. It's such a good contrast to all the other motivations in this show. Kristen is someone who's been drawn into this world of the royals and he's been completely exploited, completely chewed up and spat out. And now he knows it's going to get him killed. And it's just like the horror of that, to be used by this machine.
I love that Gawain just sort of resigns himself. It's like, oh, I guess we'll just sit down together.
Yeah, Gawain's like, yeah, this is the death train. Get on board, idiot. And Gawain's like, okay.
He's really deflated.
Gawain was thinking, okay, so I'm going to confront Kristen. Should I stab him in the back? No, I'll face him. I'll be a man. I've been training with my sword. I reckon I can take Kristen. I know Kristen's a good fighter, but I'm pretty sure I can defeat Kristen. It really can't. I reckon it's all about the left parry and the right hook. And then Kristen's like, yeah, no, we are going to die.
True honor is a mist that melts in the wind. It's like, I've got a sword point at you, motherfucker.
Completely takes the wind out of him.
Speaking of like a tonal whiplash,
Shirako just wrestles the hell out of Thailand to the delight of everybody around.
He's not even participating, really. He's resigned.
He only gradually gets sort of taunted into fighting back.
Yeah. I do love how much fun Shirako is having in this scene. And I also love the blue wig.
Yeah, I like the various weirdos who are watching.
Yeah,
I feel
it's
like
so much
the
fun.
costumes and the casting is all quite nicely done. And yeah, I do believe there is some kind of a... Oh yeah, is that the eagle back there?
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah, so there is an eagle back there. Oh, and is that the goat?
Oh, that's the goat.
Yeah, so there's an eagle, there's a goat. Eagle-eyed viewers will spot the eagle.
Goat-eyed viewers will spot predators coming from... That's why they've got the horizontal pupils.
Can you please just do like a fucking like miscellaneous animal fact video at some point,
yeah,
please?
I probably should, shouldn't I?
Every single one of Shirako's
King's Landing
lines
is
and delivery.
Most doughty ambassador.
Most doughty ambassador.
What a strange thing to say.
Everything she says is weird. And I love how like even while Thailand...
He's covered in mud. He's exhausted. There's blood in his mouth. I hope that you would be able to testify to the doubtiness of... What are you doing? You've just been walloped.
He's on task. He was sent here to make an alliance and that's what he's focused on. Doesn't matter if it's at the negotiating table or in the mud pit, he's focused on getting the job done. You've got to respect that. So Shirako says, do you want to eat people? And Thailand says, nah.
I am good, thank you.
So,
but she's just laughing. She's just having a joke. A jest.
She's having a goof. This pirate has great teeth.
I like how Thailand just falls over for no reason.
Look, it's Baylor.
I know her from earlier in the season.
She's the one who wrote David Bowie. She's a bit of a loose cannon for that, wasn't she?
I guess she was. I've been worried about how little actual personality Baylor's been having. Like, I've been enjoying her on screen throughout the season, but it's always like in service of just telling someone, yeah, let's do what Rhaenyra wanted the whole time.
And it is funny how like she gives a pep talk to her sulking fiance Jace.
And her sulking grandfather Corlys.
Rhaenyra was saying, I must rely on you now and you can talk to Corlys for me. And so I think that like most of the characters this season, Baylor is a setup arc. I mean, we did see her feeling frustrated that Damon ignores her. I think that was good.
Yeah, she wanted to have a scene with her sulking father where she's a cheerleader for Rhaenyra, but that didn't happen because he was too fast. He got away from her.
Jace is upset that Ulf and Hugh exist and he's not as special anymore. And
he's not upset. He's not pouting. He's reading.
it is like a perfect gif for Twitter when like Jace is pretending to read, flipping through the book without looking at the book at all.
It's fantastic.
It is very funny.
I know people who've read Ice and Fire like that.
Baylor comes along and says, hey, like, you got to act like a prince.
Yeah, and their elevation does not bring us down. It doesn't bring you down. And she says, I know you're a fucking bastard. I don't care. Do you really think you're the first bastard who's worried about being a bastard? Do you think you're the first noble heir who isn't actually who he is believed to be?
The way to deal with having your parentage questioned is not to act like a sulky bastard Kit Harington. The way to deal with it is to prove that, no, I am the prince and I am in charge and I will act like I'm legit. It comes down to Varys's question, is power just a shadow on the wall? Ultimately, power only exists to the extent, political power only exists to the extent that you can convince people to believe in you. And so you have to act the part and play the part. So
that's sort of what Jace has been about this whole time.
It's a very like thematically relevant message that Baylor is teaching him. A bit difficult to deal with all this stuff when you're a kid with like 4 dads and all of them are inadequate.
Who do you think Jace needs as a dad?
Someone...
Give this kid a new dad.
I think that what's scary about Jace this season is that, like, you know, he threatened to like execute Ulf and scatter his remains to the dogs, and like he learned that from Daemon, right? Because like Daemon brought out Larry and Steffi and said, I'll eat you with my dragons. Jace is repeating that behavior of making violent threats.
Yeah, that didn't come from Laenor. Isn't it funny that Laenor literally did the gay abandon?
Laenor did a gay abandon. So the gay abandon is the name of the ship that's meant to take little Aegon and little Viserys and the dragons and the eggs to Pentos. This is more of a morose abandonment. This is more of a cold abandonment. But I do hope that the show acknowledges that Rhaena like is defying orders from Rhaenyra. Like I feel like
pretty important orders. Hey, keep an eye on my 2 sons, by the way, and these dragon eggs, like the potential future of our house.
That was like that was Rhaena's big scene this season, was Rhaenyra saying, hey, Rhaena, I know that like this isn't what you want, but I want you to be a mother to my children. That was a big deal that the queen was like, I want you to be the mother to these children.
And this is her reaction to it. She didn't want to do it, so she's not doing it. She'd rather freeze to death in the wilderness, honestly.
Which of course is like the same shit that young Rhaenyra felt and did. Like when Rhaenyra ran off into the woods. Like when
Viserys tells you, hey, you need to be a mother to my grandchildren. You need to be a vector for the continuation of our house, which is exactly what Rhaenyra is doing to Rhaena here.
I think it's very weird the way they've used Jane Arryn. The show's interested in different forms of female power, right? And she alludes to that a little bit when Jane says, I don't like feeling powerless, etc. But I don't know, her and her relationship to Jessamine and to her rebellious cousins, that feels like something that could have been very thematically relevant and which could have been meaningful to Rhaena, right? And could have propelled Rhaena into this dramatic decision of running off to find a dragon. What if Jane kind of encouraged Rhaena? Octopus.
Octo time.
Do you like Tylan's sea shanty?
Yeah, it's great.
It's very horny. Well done, Lord
Good
Tyrod.
Well delivered.
To the gullet on the morrow.
To friendship.
I find it so funny how Tylan says to friendship.
Yes, this will make Aegon happy. Our friendship is great. And they're like, yeah, we're going to fucking kill Corlys Velaryon. That's what we're here for. We're going to extort the small folk of King's Landing with a tax on basic goods. It's a big change from like where the Triarchy is sitting, right? They're going off to war with Corlys Velaryon again, except this time his wife with a dragon is dead. We need a character like stoked that Rhaenys is dead.
Yeah, because that would contrast to like the small folk when they saw Meleys dead and they're like, oh, this is bad. But like from the perspective of the Triarchy, they would hate dragons. They would have nothing but bad things to say about dragons. You know what else would actually be great is if half these Triarchy people had horrific burns on their bodies, because that would make you realize, oh yeah, they have been at war with dragons and it sucks, and that might motivate them to behave in certain ways.
It'll also be such a fun contrast with this lovely tropical paradise where everyone's really jubilant, having a great time, but everyone's like scarred. How many wives do you think she has?
Upwards of 40.
Wow, that's a lot of wives.
A lot of the conflict of this show,
who fucks who,
is driven by people having sex with the wrong people, Whereas Shrocko's like, yeah, no,
Do you want to fuck all my wives?
Yeah, which is a hilarious
dozen of them.
contrast. It's such a striking contrast to the sexual politics of Westeros.
I love this expression on Tyland's face.
The fact that his question is not like, you want me to have sex with your wives? The question is, how many wives do you have? Because he wants to be realistic about this.
He whips out the spreadsheet, see if he can fit them all in.
Rhaenyra holds a dinner with her dragon riders. I mean, this is like the UN Security Council or something. Like the people at this table command the nuclear arsenal of this world.
They could conquer the planet.
I would love it if like Adam pitched like, hey, like I know that you're attached to Westeros. What if we conquered Yi Ti right now? These people have options is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like forget about Rhaenyra. What if Adam just wants to do that? What if Hugh or Ulf just want to go off and make themselves the ruler of some far-flung place?
And so this scene is funny because, oh my God, look at Tom Bennett's face. You guys are great, but you're just common bastards. But I believe in you, but you better not betray me.
I could make you all knights if you fucking listen to me.
And you sort of get the sense that like maybe Rhaenyra should have laid out the terms before she gave these people dragons.
Yeah.
Is Hugh going to get what he wants out of this?
Or is he going to have to fight to get what he wants?
We saw last episode when Hugh was like yelling at Vermithor. It's like, oh, this guy has desire. This guy has fire. But he's sort of keeping that tamped down for this dinner scene. But you know that fire is still there beneath the surface. So I'm curious to see that, you know.
And Rhaenyra really should be suspecting that as well. Like, she saw this guy scream at a god.
Yeah.
And then that god go, yep, we can vibe.
So Rhaenyra announces her new military strategy.
Murdering hundreds of thousands of civilians.
Yeah. That's weird.
It's dropped in a pretty low-key fashion. Like, in Game of Thrones, like, quite the big deal was made about this. And in House of the Dragon Season 1, quite the big deal was made out of it.
Yeah, the reason why Rhaenyra refused to attack King's Landing with dragons was because she didn't want to kill civilians. Over and over, Rhaenyra has said, I don't want to kill innocent people, including in this episode to Mysaria. She says, I really don't want to kill innocent people, but her plan to win the war is to attack Old Town and Lannisport, which are two of the most densely populated cities. So she's like... She seems to be planning to commit some of the worst atrocities imaginable.
Just after we see everyone scorning Aemond for burning a relatively small town.
I could understand it if they were leaning into what Rhaenyra did last episode with the sowing of the seeds,
but
right?
she like seems pretty reasonable. Like she comes across as though she is normal.
I wish that they continued the momentum of her messianic blood sacrifice dragon queen energy that she had last episode. If she was continuing with that here, I would understand why she's willing to burn cities to win. And the thing that I keep screaming at the TV is like, why don't you just kill Vhagar? Surely if you killed Aemond and Vhagar, that would be the best way to win the war. And if they had 7 dragons, they could presumably kill Vhagar. I feel like the plot could have worked as good or better if instead of saying we're going to go burn down Old Town and Lannisport, she just said, we're going to attack King's Landing without dragons.
Yeah, it's a lot more straightforward. It makes a lot more sense. It makes the scene at the end with Alicent, it gives it a new context. Like, Alicent could, like, catch wind of this plan and be like, no, you need to not do that. Here's how I can make that not happen. Because, you know, Alicent's deluded into thinking that she can make King's Landing pacified on its own. We've seen Rhaenyra complain throughout this season that she was never trained for this. Is that enough of an excuse for this, like, botched strategy?
They could explore that if they acknowledged it. If Jace or Mysaria or someone said, hey, Rhaenyra, I think that might be a bad plan. And
or
she's
Daemon
like,
when she's at Harrenhal.
Yeah, Daemon is the perfect person to come along and say, you're attacking where? What?
Old Town? You're going 8 times past King's Landing?
Yeah, I would have liked that because that would also show why Rhaenyra needs Daemon. We could take on Vhagar.
Silverwing's a goer. She's a goer, she is.
It's fucking great.
Like, what do you know?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Every face that Tom Bennett pulls at this dinner is spectacular.
Fantastic.
So Ulf like sort of comes a hair's breadth from like defying Rhaenyra to her face.
Yeah, you see Laurent Marbrand like put his hand on his sword after he says, you better make me a knight.
Yeah, so they're really sort of setting up that it looks like there's going to be a problem. And they also set up a little bit of rivalry between Adam and Ulf.
He accuses Adam of like being a coward for not wanting to go and kill hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, he's overcompensating because Ulf is the most cowardly person at this table.
Yeah, he wanted to not go to Dragonstone because his leg hurt.
Oh, look, it's Gerardus.
It's Phil Daniels, yeah, killing it once more with the...
I have news for you, Your Grace.
He leans in and he says, I'm very excited to tell you this information.
I have information. Isn't that wonderful?
Gerardus,
Isn't information the best?
he's the one guy in this show who loves his job and performs it with panache and zest.
I feel like Orwell loves parts of his job. I specialize in poultices and queen smuggling. Can't tie shoes, but he sure knows how to smuggle a poultice.
When you think about it, smuggling's a lot like a poultice.
May God have mercy on us all. I'm going to speak with my husband.
I think the people at this table, like, to varying degrees, realize the geopolitical consequences of
Having
Rhaenyra.
a chat with your spouse.
Why did she take Adam and Seasmoke and not take anyone else? How long does it take to fly from Dragonstone to Harrenhal?
I have no idea, but I'm going to guess like 6 hours, 3 to 6 hours, like an afternoon.
No way. It's days. It's got to be days.
What do you mean?
It's got to be days. Because
Fire and Blood says that Rhaenyra and Daemon flew from King's Landing to Dragonstone in an afternoon. They made round trips across like a day.
And the distance from Dragonstone to Harrenhal is much more than the distance from...
It's about twice.
Is it about twice?
Harrenhal is about as far from King's Landing as Dragonstone is.
All right, so I guess this is like a day
And
or
it's
two.
not in the direct opposite direction.
Yeah.
Because they're both north of King's Landing.
Rhaenyra and Adam are basically flying past King's Landing to get to Harrenhal.
Yeah.
It's like, you could have like glassed King's
on
Landing
the way to speak with Daemon, let's just end the war.
Exactly. Like they could have literally taken the throne. And like the bringing Adam thing is weird because we don't even see Adam at Harrenhal. We just see Seasmoke circling and...
Yeah, like it's of no consequence. I think it's really just here to give us that shot of Jace being like, oh, why aren't I coming?
Yeah, the continued sort of exclusion of Jace is important for his character.
Yeah. Why not bring Baela, Daemon's daughter?
Yeah, the opportunity to have a scene between Daemon and Baela would be nice. Here's the other thing, like, they don't just have to worry about Vhagar, they have to worry about Caraxes, because the whole concern here is that Daemon may be rebelling against Rhaenyra.
And he may be independently powerful.
So is Rhaenyra confident that Cyrax and Seasmoke can kill Caraxes? Is that...
I don't know. You'd have to ask her.
Bringing Baela would be cool because it's like, okay, Daemon, if you're going to rebel against me, are you going to kill your daughter? Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah.
Because your daughter's loyal to me. So are you going to kill your daughter to rebel against me? Like, that would be a cool dynamic. Daemon's having a nap.
It's difficult when there's a goth girl crying on your bed.
Reminds me of the pain of knowing the future and the past. And this person is alienated and isolated from humanity because the things that she feels are based on the things that she knows that no one else knows.
Very Helena.
Of course, they're the same person. Helena is skin-changing Alice.
No, they're not even skin-changing. Helena's just like, she actually does ride Dreamfire all the time. She's making daily trips to Harrenhal.
I like how Daemon is now completely accepting of the ride that he's on.
Yeah. We saw him bashing on the door and then he gave up and accepted that this is where he is and he has to get through it rather than getting around it.
This is literally my favorite subtitle of all time.
Antlered human shape, clip-clopping, grumbles. That's fantastic.
Isn't that beautiful? That's a
Whoever wrote that subtitle.
Yeah.
Are there subtitling awards?
They were cooking. Give that subtitle an Emmy. Incredible.
And there he is.
I screamed. A green man.
Can you give us a reenactment? Wow.
This is fan service to the most dorky minority of viewers.
Yeah, Green Men are so obscure. There is like no fan art of them.
Yeah.
I've looked. I have tried.
Yeah, they're like these antlered satyr, like mystical thingies. The Pact, the Children of the Forest, Nature Spirits, Wiccans.
They guard the weirwoods.
etc.,
Did this one like take a little swim over the God's Eye to check on this weirwood or like set it up for the vision? You're going to have to give Daemon Targaryen a vision tonight, so I need you to just calm down. He's a bit of a loose cannon. You need to take this one easy, all right?
Is this Green Man actually physically here or just like psychically asked? Because I feel like the whole point of the Green Man is that they stay on the Isle of Faces and they use the trees and the magic to influence the world. Yeah, I guess the implication is that the Green Men are a spirit of the old gods and the old gods and Alice, so they're all interconnected and they're all part of giving Daemon these visions to make Daemon fulfill his destiny. Which again is really interesting because I get the sense from the books that the Targaryens and their prophecies and Azor Ahai and the Prince that was promised is maybe like a separate goal than what the old gods want. Although Bloodraven seems to want Jon Snow to do his Azor Ahai destiny, and Bloodraven is connected to the old gods. So I guess it does all enmesh. I am partial to the idea that Azor Ahai arose from a crime against the old gods, and so the old gods might not want Azor Ahai to be fulfilled in the way that people think.
Are we seeing two opposing sides of the same war in prophecy? There's the Targaryen, Viserys, Dragon Dreams, Helena side, and then there's the Bloodraven, Old Gods, Green Men, Green side, Weirwood side. Yeah,
like on the most basic symbolic level, the trees would not get along with the fire people, right?
Because as Pokemon taught us in 1996, fire beats grass.
Never has a truer thing been said. Yeah,
and bug resists ground for some reason.
I do have some reservations at how many goddamn times they allude to destiny this season. I'm okay with it as long as they question it to some extent. Like as long as this story ends with people going, maybe thinking that the Messiah is dangerous and maybe it's not that simple. Like we don't want a Phantom Menace midichlorian. It was all predestined. Like that's not the energy that I want.
That's not the vibe.
So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I'm delighted to see a antlered figure clip-clopping. Daemon's like, I'm a changed man. I acknowledge that magic and destiny exists, and I'm willing to change. Good job, Daemon. And then Daemon touches George Martin's face.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah. You also put your hand on his forehead. Is that Willem Blackwood's blood?
Sure.
Holy shit, it's Bloodraven.
I know him from when he looked completely different.
What?
But he's still in the future. It's what period of time are we looking at Bloodraven in here?
Yeah, this is...
When is this guy?
This is very confusing. By the point Bloodraven is on the Weirwood throne, he's an old man and he has one eye. This is a younger man with two eyes.
Why has he got two eyes?
I think that it fits with the vision dream logic that we see in A Song of Ice and Fire. I think the idea of seeing a young Bloodraven on the throne, like there never was a young Bloodraven on the throne, but he just represents Bloodraven. I mean, Bloodraven hasn't been born yet, right? So this is like a sort of symbolic vision of the young Bloodraven on the throne, which he will one day have.
Is Daemon supposed to associate this guy with himself? Like, is Daemon supposed to look at this guy and go, that could be me?
That's an interesting question. One interpretation is that I saw some people online going like, oh, the blonde person on the tree. Yeah, Daemon's going to become a tree man.
No, he's going to be the Night King.
Well, yeah, I saw people saying, oh, the White Walker is blonde, so therefore Daemon's going to become a White Walker, or Aemon's going to become a White Walker. I mean, I think the reason I think seriously the reason why they didn't make Bloodraven one-eyed is because they didn't want people to think it was Aemond. Having two different one-eyed Targaryens would probably confuse people.
Yeah, George.
We haven't actually explained who Bloodraven is.
I don't know if you're supposed to like know who Bloodraven is if you're watching this.
Well, yeah, it is really funny because like this is one of the most like storied, mysterious characters in the lore who most people watching the show don't know or recognize. This would be so confusing.
It might be really cool.
I mean, I guess one implication is that maybe Bloodraven is part of what's giving Daemon these visions.
There's a lot to be said about where this vision is coming from because Helena shows up later and that really sent me for a loop.
I adore the fucking goofiness.
It's so goofy.
The CGI raven flies out of the birthmark. It's like, are you kidding me? I love it. It's so weird.
It really is sort of like an 80s-y movie in exactly the way that you pictured George would have wanted 30 years ago.
Yeah, this is actually one of the few things that is actually as George Martin may have intended. If A Song of Ice and Fire was adapted to TV by George Martin in the 80s, this is one of the things that you would have seen.
This would have been like the first shot of the opening credits.
This would have been most of their budget, is this shot.
It's so cool.
It's
and
delightful.
Goofy and dumb.
Speaking of goofy and dumb, White Walkers.
Planet Halloween mask.
White Walkers. Oh no. It's such an asymmetrical face.
You have a problem with that?
Yeah, I do. So like throughout the season, they've been saying Aegon the Conqueror dreamed that the White Walkers were coming. And that's why we need to rule Westeros together to stop the White Walkers. I think that's fine.
You've made your peace with that?
I've made my peace with that. I guess the problem is that like,
spooky blue zombies.
If they did the Ice and Fire ethereal white shadows, people would have thought that there's something else. They're like, what's that?
Yeah.
So they needed to look like Game of Thrones White Walkers. I can accept that. But you know what they could have done? Just blue eyes in the darkness. Just like a shadow, just a silhouette with
we did
blue
not
eyes.
need to see a full old man face with armor.
Because I never liked this White Walker design. I've seen people on Twitter being like, so is that the Night King?
It's very clearly not the Night King.
Yeah, it's very clearly not the Night King. They could have had the Night King here, right?
I guess, yeah. Why isn't it the Night King?
Would that have made more sense?
Was Vladimir Furdik busy?
I think it's fine to show the White Walkers. I just wish it was done in a way that didn't look so fucking goofy. And I wish it was like a silhouette or a far away shot or one of the many shots from season 7 and 8 that looked great when it was like from a distance, seeing the horde of the undead and in the darkness, in the mist. The brightly lit close up doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
It's also like not many zombies.
30 zombies.
Yeah.
I have to save the world from 30 zombies.
Exactly. Is that enough to make Damon convinced of the apocalypse?
Yeah, I think it really did need to be like an overhead shot of like thousands and thousands of zombies. And then we cut to a shot of like blue eyes floating in the darkness.
Yes.
We're trying to scare Daemon Targaryen here, right?
In season 1, Daemon Targaryen went on a solo suicide mission and killed 40 pirates with his bare hands,
While,
dodged
like,
a million
300
arrows,
crossbowmen were shooting at him.
walked out bathed in the crab feeder's blood. Daemon has a dragon. Do you think he looks at these frosty 30 blokes and goes, wow, what is my fire-breathing dragon going to do against these 30 geriatrics? Are you kidding?
I will concede that the next shot is all the dead dragons. So like he can connect those dots.
How does he think these guys are going to kill dead dragons? He hasn't seen the ice javelins, Glidus.
He hasn't seen how good a shot the Night King is one time. Why is Euron Greyjoy a better shot than the Night King?
Because that's the other fundamental problem is that no one wants to be reminded of Game of Thrones season 8. So don't do it.
Do it different.
It's not necessary. It's an unforced error to remind people of season 8, episode 3.
Where's Arya Stark in this vision?
And of course, we've talked at length in our fake Jon Snow that like none of the people at that battle were necessary except for Arya and Bran. Literally no one needed to die there. It shits me that they tie it so closely to season 8. They don't need to do this.
But like they're clearly referencing a different ending of Game of Thrones. Like they're inventing a new ending for the show and that's the one that they're referencing.
And like Ryan Condal in the interviews and stuff was saying that, well, we're not taking a stance on the prophecy. That's George's story to tell, is what Ryan Condal, the showrunner, said. House of the Dragon can't tell us the ending to Game of Thrones, which we've already seen, which sucked, or to A Song of Ice and Fire, which isn't written yet. This is the nuttiest canon situation of all time.
Yeah, Del Toro Quest was way simpler to follow than this.
I cannot emphasize enough how fucking weird this is. That this is a prequel that's alluding to the ending of a book series that doesn't have an ending and simultaneously to a TV show that had a shitty ending that no one likes.
This prequel is also based on a weird history book that doesn't have a conclusive narrative.
Which is about unreliable history, which is also itself an unfinished project because he hasn't finished part 2 of Fire and Blood. And now they're doing another show, which is is it a sequel to Hot D or is it a prequel to Goth? A Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
I think it's an adaptation of a series of unfinished novellas.
It melts my brain that this is the situation that we're in. It melts my brain.
Is that your barn owl impression? Your Alice Rivers impersonation?
Is it a barn owl or is it a tawny owl? In an official still, Alice Rivers is holding a completely different owl.
Really?
Yes.
Like a different owl to the one that she picks up?
A completely different owl.
Oh my god.
Part of the vision, Daemon sees a bunch of dead dragons. That could mean that more dragons will die in Rhaenyra's war. That could mean that more Targaryens will die, because dragons can be a metaphor for Targaryens.
Could mean that all dragons will die at some point.
It looks like a burn or a wound on that dragon. I actually really like this shot. Like
yeah,
seeing
I really
the
like this one too.
crumpled wings in the background, particularly disturbing to Daemon, who like his whole identity is Targaryen dragon power.
Yeah.
So seeing them dead is very disturbing. But you'll note that he's wearing the same tunicky coat pants as Bran and as the Night King.
Wow.
So Bran is the Night King and is Daemon.
Daemon is the Night King. Sorry everyone, I was wrong. It's not Rhaegar, it's Daemon.
So this battle could represent the war, the Dance of the Dragons, but it could also represent the battle against the White Walkers.
Yep. Where a dragon does not die.
It seems like a considerably bigger war than the actual War for the Dawn that we saw in GOT Season 8.
Yeah, see, it's referencing a different ending to the show.
And then Damon is drowning. The director, Geeta Patel, said that they couldn't drown Matt Smith in actual water, so he's falling in front of a green screen, and they made the water dark to make it look like dragon blood.
We used to be able to drown actors. What happened to this
The
industry?
good old days. I swear to Christ, dragons had red blood in Game of Thrones, and now they have black blood in Hot D. Are they a different subspecies of dragons at this point?
Might be. Yeah, because Daenerys's dragons, they're a reintroduction of an old specimen of the species, right?
Oh, yeah.
Although now Hot D alleges that those dragon eggs were from Cyrax, so they shouldn't
Hot D
be.
never alleged that.
Yeah,
The people
true.
behind the scenes, two different people behind the scenes
Alleged
said two different
things.
In the books, the dragons have different colored fire. So the idea that they might have different colored blood as well is not impossible.
Yeah, those two things do correlate. Like fire burns different colors at different temperatures. The color of blood is like controlled by certain mechanisms in the blood, like hemolymph and hemoglobin are what make blood colored the way it is.
But in episode 4, when the blood got in the guy's eyes and it sizzled and he screamed, it seems as though the blood is the like fiery explosive liquid that makes the fire breathing possible and makes them explode.
I'm having a brain blast.
Yeah.
It's theory time. It's lizard moment.
Hell yeah.
Dragons require so much more oxygen to
Yeah.
get their muscles enough power to lift them. Like their wings need so much more energy behind them
Sure.
that their blood necessitates a higher density of hemoglobin than any other tetrapod. So, because there's this more hemoglobin, it appears more saturated and darker.
Yeah, there you go. It's all the hemoglobin.
Yeah. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I think that they're full of helium, so they float.
No, it must be. It's hydrogen because they explode.
Like the goddamn Hindenburg.
Exactly.
That was your tetrapod minute with Glidus. Hey, look,
Hey,
it's
there's a comet on screen.
there's a red comet. I like this shot. That's a weird shot.
Yeah.
What's going on in that shot? I don't think that's what a comet looks like close up.
No?
That looks like a volcanic eruption to me.
It does, yeah. This is where dragons came from.
That's when the second moon got too close to the sun and cracked.
Sure.
Like Nissa.
That's not what a moon looks like when it gets too close to a planet and cracks.
It's an omen of magic returning and dragons returning.
I really love the goofy fade from the comet explosion thing to the dragons burning in the fire.
This is what George Martin would have done in the 80s.
Yeah.
Is that Amelia Clarke?
No.
I think this is actually a really cool way to do
I
it.
really like what they've done here.
Yeah, because it's recognizable as the same scene as the end of season 1, episode 10, but, Amelia's busy or,
Doesn't want to be involved,
yeah,
which is fair enough.
yeah,
This franchise consumed enough of her life.
yeah.
Not enough of mine, though.
I think the point of all this is that this is representative of the Targaryen dynasty and their destiny, the prophecy, the Song of Ice and Fire. There is something in their blood that connects them to the past and to the future. And this is why they must rule and hold things together so that they can defeat the White Walkers. I think in actual fact, these people might be responsible for the creation of the White Walkers in the ancient past, and that's something that might be addressed in the end of the books. Daemon interprets this as, we're the heroes, we've got a rule, and Rhaenyra is the one who must be on the throne.
Well, is that what he was supposed to interpret from this vision? What a character comes away from a vision with and what it was intended for them to come away with are two separate things.
The idea of are you seeing the unvarnished truth, or are you seeing your own interpretation based on your biases, or is the person who is giving you this dream misleading you, which is something the Bloodraven seems to do. So all this stuff should be questioned. Then Helena breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, she does a bit of that this episode. And we're in an inky black void. Like, has this ever happened before? Characters just addressing each other in the void of space?
It's kind of amazing. I mean, we just saw Daemon drowning in a dark, watery death.
Is this the afterlife?
Yeah.
Does Helena have one foot in death? Is that how she's able to access all of this shit? I don't fucking know.
Maybe she's like Jojen and she has already seen her death.
Oh,
Yeah.
100% Helena knows how she's going to die.
So here they are, two dead people talking to each other, looking at each other from outside their own lives.
And this is really interesting because like Damon and Helena have never spoken. Damon's like, oh, I know who it's on the tip of my tongue.
I think it's almost like reassurance from Helena. Like it's almost like Helena pities Damon.
Yeah.
And she's like, yep, you're going to die, but it's okay. You can do this. It's almost like, I believe in you. You can do this. You poor idiot. And it's awesome because Helena's the most like passive and vulnerable character, telling the most like active, chaotic, destructive character that, oh no, we're the same. You and me. We are both pieces in the game, just like Alice was saying.
Yeah.
It is surprising to see like a Targaryen dreamer appear in an old god's vision.
Yeah, I was like having a great time, you know, Comet, Bloodraven, Daenerys, fuck yeah. Oh, there's a White Walker mask. Anyway, woo, dead dragons drowning in a lake. What the fuck is Helena doing here?
It fits the logic of the lore well enough. Like there are various characters who project themselves into other people's dreams. When there's more dragons around, there's more magic, and this is the time when the most dragons exist. So like unique, powerful magic could be more plausible at this time.
Sure, yeah.
If Helena's talking to Daemon through the astral plane, who else has she been talking to?
Yeah, Jesus. Was she, like Viserys?
Yeah, I mean, you could almost say like, what if Helena was giving Viserys visions?
From before she was born?
Wouldn't it? Oh, well, I mean, time travel is part of these visions. I mean, maybe Viserys has seen Helena in visions and that's why he never talked to her, is because she was scared of what she is.
Or maybe they just had a really great relationship in the astral plane.
Yeah,
and they didn't need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had tea every morning
in
the inky black void.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So Helena's physically like on a balcony saying words into the sky at the moment. Was there like temporal coordination between Helena and Alice Rivers? Like, I mean, they're the same person, so like it's moot. Tis moot. Like, okay, I'm going to fuck Damon's head up at 10 p.m. on Saturday night. You need to be ready to
make sure you finish dinner and you're on the balcony. Otherwise, your family will think it's super weird.
Or did Helena just get like a ping in her brain? Oh, someone's having a crazy vision. I need to step in now.
But it makes you think of all the other times that Helena has muttered to herself.
Is she speaking to someone else at that time? When she says he'll have to close an eye, is she saying that directly into Aemon's brain?
Is she saying that into Luke's brain to compel him to slash Aemon's eye?
Fucking hell.
It does raise a lot of questions of like, how long has Helena been doing this kind of shit? It feels to me like she has leveled up. It feels to me like she has gained more power because now she's about to talk back to Aemon for the first time.
And like you can never imagine her doing that before. He's pleading desperation, pleading weakness. This must be so hard for him. And I really love that about all of the Aemon scenes this episode is like everyone involved has a very clear and understandable motivation.
Like he's correct that if they don't kill the enemy will kill him.
Yeah.
And in an interesting way, like just like Alicent and Helena in turn have been put in this situation against their will, Aemon has also been put in an awful situation. So he's not completely crazy to say like, hey, it's our duty to fight and win. And he's completely correct that they need Dreamfire now that Rhaenyra has more dragons. But also just the tenderness. Like I think that, you know, I think Aemon loves Helena, and whether that's as a sister or as something else, God forbid, I'm not sure.
I would really prefer it if their connection remained familial and entirely platonic.
The tenderness from Ewan Mitchell here is really lovely. It emphasizes what we sort of already know about Aemon, which is that all of his atrocity and violence comes from his feeling of vulnerability. So then Helena reveals that she knows that Aemon burned Aegon, and Aemon feels horrible that he did that to his brother.
He's crying. Making that accusation is treasonous, but Aemon doing that thing was treasonous.
So then Helena makes some prophecies. She says that Aegon will be king again, and that he sits on a wooden throne, and that Aemon will die and will be swallowed up in the God's Eye. Have you seen season 3?
You can't just skip ahead to the last page.
What's going on here? So the God's Eye is a lake.
Let me explain.
It's next to Harrenhal. The Isle of Faces is on the God's Eye.
We were just there. We saw a green man walking on the shores of it moments ago.
This is the eye. This is the heart at the center of Westeros. And Helena is prophesying that it will swallow
this dragon
Aemond
lord
or Daemon or whatever the hell it is that's going to happen. So that's interesting. And yeah, Aegon will be king again. So what do you think it means wooden throne? He sits a wooden throne. A wooden throne could be a wheelchair.
Yeah, like Bran's.
Remember when Bran talked about wheelchair facts?
And he was wrong about all of them.
Aemon threatens to have Helena killed, and Helena says it won't change anything. And yeah, I like that idea of like, is Helena just saying that free will doesn't matter at all, or is it just that specific action that wouldn't matter? Is it just Aemon specifically who is doomed? Dragons flying over the God's Eye.
Oh, it's so good to see. This is the most like epic shot ever, isn't it?
There's never been this much mysterious magical energy in one frame
There's so
of
much
this franchise.
fantasy bullshit going on. You'd love to see it.
The green men live on that island with the weirwoods. The ghost of Harren the Black haunts that castle.
Ghost fucking massive castle. There's 2 dragons on screen flying over the epic fantasy island. Like, thank God. And then, like, the best shot ever, Caraxes has a little nap. And then he wakes up and he cries to his new friends. Well, his old friends, I guess. That shot's adorable.
I also like this shot of Harrenhal. It looks like fucking Minas Morgul, man. Like, it looks like such a spooky, ruined, nasty, scorched castle, which is exactly what it should look like.
You can see the size of the camp that Damon's mustered over the past, like, week.
That is a lot of dudes. Although it also occurs to you that, like, any of these dragons could just kill all of these men right now.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about this aerial shot from Dragonback.
I like this shot so much. Look at this shot.
I'm looking at it.
It shows Rhaenyra ascending to power. I like how Cyrex just dropped Rhaenyra off like a soccer mum and is like, I got the orange slices for when you're done. Hope it goes well with your husband. Rhaenyra's coming here to check whether her husband is betraying her and stealing her power with an army. What is her plan if Daemon says, I am betraying you and stealing your army? Like, Daemon could just grab her and imprison her and or kill her.
You see, that's why you bring 2 dragons.
But neither of whom are between her and death.
Well, Cyrax flies up to the tower, like, when the confrontation begins.
It's just a mutually assured destruction thing.
Yeah, they're Targaryens. This whole thing is about mutually assured destruction. Have you been paying attention?
Again, Simon is like absolutely like dabbing on the haters with his drip.
My God.
But
there are no haters.
I think it's really funny how Simon's repeatedly saying we don't have enough money to put a roof on our castle, but he's clearly spending all of his roof money on like sick robes. Rhaenyra walks into the hall. This is where Viserys was chosen as the future king instead of Rhaenys.
This is the site of the Great Council.
This is Patriarchy Mansion, and she's stepping in to assert her power as a female ruler.
Yeah. And here, like, Daemon chooses Rhaenyra to be the monarch. So that's a fun little parallel.
It's a Uno reverse card on the Harrenhal Council. Take that, maesters who rigged the election.
Yeah, take that, the maesters.
I like how season 1 leaned into, those maesters. Melos is conniving with Otto, but this season just dropped that.
Yeah, Orwell's a cool guy. Gerardus seems like fun.
Do you think we'll see Old Town?
I would love to.
It'd be interesting. Like, if Otto is returning, then maybe the Maester element will also return.
That's the thing. This season had Otto Hightower for like 2 episodes, and then he's hanging out in a cage.
Do you think he's been in the entire season?
Yeah, he stepped out of King's Landing and immediately hopped in a cage. Everyone's worried about where Otto is. He's just that's where he is. Sometimes an old man's in a cage. You just got to deal with that.
Everyone's asking where's Otto.
Shaming.
No one's asking how is Otto.
Yeah.
King shaming. That's how he like copes with the stress of being the hand of the king.
We get it, Otto. You don't have to explain.
So Daemon's like, hi,
honey. I got you an army. I just had the craziest fucking we're gonna have this conversation, but I had the weirdest fucking dream last night.
Damon's still having like flashes of hallucination, like he's seeing green men like walk around in the background.
He's
like
still
the
trying to
walls
remember
are
Helena's
still
name.
like rippling, and it's like the floor is still fuzzy. The king consort and the queen reunite, and instead of talking politics, instead of any of that, it's Rhaenyra just being sassy at her husband. Oh, that seems rather a lapse in foresight.
It's all she knows. Viserys never taught her shit about war. Rhaenys taught her how to sass, though.
It's the same thing that Rhaenyra does with Alicent, where Rhaenyra's like, oh, the perfect queen had sex with Kristen.
It's like there's so much else you could be talking about here.
But Rhaenyra feels so constrained politically that she's just like, all I can do is sass people. So that's what she does. So they sort of dance around the topic for a little bit, but then Rhaenyra is finally like, and to whom are you sworn?
Yeah, she steps back and says it to everyone. Like, she doesn't make it him. It's about like everyone is now involved in this. And Daemon's reaction to that is to lean in and speak in a language no one else understands.
Whatever Daemon says in private means nothing. Rhaenyra forces Daemon to publicly make a declaration because that's the only way to actually get Daemon to do anything that means anything.
And then it makes sense that Daemon refuses to do that. And he's like, no, we need to have like a really intimate conversation right now. Yeah. I've been shaken to my fucking core, babe.
Yeah, I just saw God and the apocalypse and the end of time.
I think that was Emilia Clarke.
I saw Emilia Clarke's bum and you need to be the king.
This changes everything.
I was kind of questioning the dreams with Viserys, but like I actually love how Daemon's kind of like, yeah, like I always disdained my brother for being into this prophecy bullcrap. But
And it's not like that came out of nowhere.
yeah,
That came out of everywhere.
they have laid the groundwork, and Daemon's like, yeah, my brother was right. And he finally accepts that like Viserys chose Rhaenyra, not him. And that's his wound since season 1, episode 1. And now he finally faces it. And that's what he refused to face in season 2, episode 2 when they had the argument. And now he finally acknowledges it.
Yeah. And it's entirely facilitated by the breaking down of his ego by those visions by Alice. And also the Riverlands political situation, making him re-examine how he behaves in the real world.
So it only took 5 visions, 3 drug trips, and an antlered satyr, but Daemon Targaryen finally respects his wife.
He has unlocked skill empathy.
Rich people have time to do this, you know. Lower class people can't afford a 6-episode therapy
It's funny
arc.
though, because this is one of the times where Daemon has the least amount of free time available in his whole life.
That is true.
Like,
He has
he's doing a
neglected all
war.
of his responsibilities. He's never been more busy, but this is when he decides to re-examine his life and take peyote with a goth girl.
I mean, he didn't really decide to.
He decided to not run away. He did decide to listen.
You think if Daemon hadn't had those visions, you know, with Viserys, with Rhaenyra, with Laena, before the Weirwood vision, he would have decided that he was the main character.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
He needed to have his ego, his main character syndrome broken down before he can like see what Alice needed him to see.
It needed to connect to his personal relationships, but it also needed to connect with prophecy and destiny. Like, I mean, this is Rhaegar Targaryen energy, right?
It really is.
Like, I think Rhaegar Targaryen basically went through this same exact shit. And I'm curious who his Alice Rivers was, like who sort of guided him through that. I would love to know if Rhaegar and Lyanna visited the Isle of Faces together, because Rhaegar and Lyanna, they did get together at Harrenhal, probably.
Yeah,
next to
in
the
this
Isle of
very
Faces.
room I've just decided.
Yeah, so I think that Daemon might kind of be walking in Rhaegar's footsteps in a lot of ways.
You mean George's characters are all repeats of each other?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
No way.
Oh yeah. I think that it's like Rhaegar could have had the exact same visions. I think this is the same like sequence of visions that like Bloodraven had.
Aegon the dragon.
Aegon the Conqueror.
Yeah.
Aegon the Conqueror may have had this exact
Daenerys the
sequence
Dreamer.
of visions. Yeah. I dig it. I like it. I think this is a good depiction of how Targaryens and their visions and their prophecies work. And I think that they have successfully tied it to Daemon and Rhaenyra's personal relationships. I think it's great.
I think that Daemon in Harrenhal is one of the best single season, single character plots across the entire franchise.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
It's what I think.
I agree that it's fantastic. I think that it is unfortunate that it is in a season that was notably uneventful and navel-gazy. And
Yeah, so it makes sense that so many people looked at these scenes of Daemon, the most exciting, chaotic, crazy character, lying in bed and being confused by ghosts.
yeah.
I understand being frustrated by that. I'm not denying you that complaint.
I think it would have been a lot more palatable if it was the weird, thoughtful arc in a
Amongst,
season
yeah.
of otherwise eventful arcs. If
Absolutely.
Rhaenyra and Aemond and Corlys were doing things this season, I think that Daemon's arc would be more palatable.
The weird thing about this scene is that it feels like it belongs in a finale.
Yeah.
And most of the rest of this episode does not feel like it belongs in a finale.
Hard agree.
How did that work?
I think the climax of many of the other arcs was cut off, but Daemon's climax was not cut off, is basically what happened.
Weird. I'd love to know how that worked.
Daemon says, I'll serve you until death or the end of our story.
I'll serve you in the afterlife.
This is absolutely Targaryen, Rhaegar, main character energy stuff, I think. You know, like there's nothing more dangerous than a person who thinks they're the main hero in a story about saving the world.
Well, Daemon's decided that Rhaenyra is the main character, which might be even worse.
Yeah.
Because Rhaenyra has also decided that she's the main character.
You know, it's actually, again, it's like Rhaegar, because Rhaegar thought that he was the prince that was promised, and then he later thought that his son would be the prince that was promised. In the same way that Daemon sort of thought he was the top shit, and then he decided that Rhaenyra is the next person.
Is he going to flip-flop again?
Maybe
in the
like
future?
before his death, he's going to realize it's Emilia Clarke. I've
I
also
loved her in Terminator Genesis.
we need to do the fake Terminator Genesis. Isn't Matt Smith in Terminator Genesis as well? Isn't he the bad guy? Isn't he Skynet?
I haven't watched Terminator Genesis.
Are Damon and Rhaenyra the main characters in a Terminator movie?
Damon and Daenerys.
We need to watch that.
It also must be mentioned that in The Crown, all three of the Prince Philips are characters from Game of Thrones.
Really?
Prince Philip starts life as Matt Smith, then he becomes Tobias Menzies, then he becomes Jonathan Pryce. So he's Daemon Targaryen, Edmure Tully, and then the High Sparrow.
That's very funny.
Simon Strong is pogging.
Yeah, Simon is adorable. Look at him go. "Ah!" That was me. That was my
He
face.
really wasn't expecting this.
Simon is like all wild to me because Simon was like trying to be neutral, but then he's like, I will take action this episode. And I like it. I like when these like old guys are like, I will take a risk. And I love how, you know, Damon does this for Rhaenyra, and Damon has like fucked Rhaenyra around so many times that she doesn't welcome him into her arms as much as part of her wants to.
They are too far gone.
Yeah, she has not forgotten his betrayals and his bullshit. He did choke her last season.
And then had a child killed in her name.
Yeah, and she has not forgotten any of those things, which is great. Even though like she has been dreaming of Damon saying this to her since she was like 12 years old, I think. She's into it, and he's into it, and all of the men are into it.
Hang on, by she's into it, you mean like having an army, having Damon back on side? Because I don't think she's into Damon anymore.
I think she is.
There's that shot where Damon like leans in to have that intimate moment that they have sometimes as if he's going to kiss her, and she turns away.
Yeah. Which I like. And to me, that's like part of the I've not forgotten your bullshit.
I think that she's like assuming the position of senior partner in their relationship the way that Damon was prior to this season.
I still think they're going to raw dog it in the Godswood in about 20 minutes.
That's entirely plausible. But I think that the political situation has like their relationship just can't come back from that.
Yeah, I don't think Rhaenyra is ever going to forget the bullshit that he's done. And I agree. There's going to be some distance and coldness between them forever, perhaps. And also, like, you know, she bashed Mazaria, and it might be that that's opened something for her. And I think there is like a romantic element to Rhaenyra's interaction with Alicent later. So yeah, I agree. I think there is a distance between Daemon and Rhaenyra now that may never be healed again, perhaps.
And like it came just too late. Like if Daemon had understood all of this a couple of months ago, like they would have been unstoppable, right?
Yeah, that's one of the tragedies. I mean, just like Rhaenyra tells Alicent this is too late, what Daemon's doing is too late. Like he should have been all for her in season 1, episode 9. It's actually the greatest cinematic tragedy in all time and space that this adorable shot of Simon clapping and just grinning
is focused on Emma Darcy
is out of focus.
He's like dancing.
Yeah, he is jubilant. Part of it is that he's like, okay, I've brought the Dragon Queen to confront her treasonous husband in my house, and they have 3 dragons. I think part of him is like,
oh, I didn't die.
Yeah, I think he was fully expecting
another melted tower.
Yeah, like his insurance premiums are not enough to cover what these Dragon Lords were about to do to his house and property.
Insure this?
Imagine getting insurance for Harrenhal.
The Iron Bank has really fallen under strange management. Oh, we also, of course, need to touch on Alfred Broom skulking back into the crowd.
Yeah, he skulked hard.
And like in a very obvious fashion. Like if I'm Rhaenyra, I saw him do that. Like what's going on there?
Rhaenyra might come up to Alfred and say, hey, thank you. I don't know what you said, but it really turned Daemon around. You really did a great job.
Yes, Your Grace. I really did that.
But then Daemon could say, yeah, no, Alfie told me to betray you. You should throw him in the God's Eye.
I realized while watching this scene that I've been where Corlys is standing. Like,
was it cool?
It was awesome, yeah. There's a gelato place off to the left of where Corlys is standing, and it was delicious.
Oh, look at that dude with the big mallet, the big hammer. His job is to like hit the struts away from the boat with a hammer. What a guy. You know that like Star Wars extra who's carrying the ice cream maker in The Empire Strikes Back?
What?
You don't know about that? They make action figures of him. I would buy the hell out of an action figure of this mallet guy running behind Alan right now.
It can go with your action figures of Night's Watchman with bales of hay.
In season 3, I want this mallet guy to like save Corlys's life by just going bonk on Shirako Loha's head out of nowhere. That'd be awesome.
You and I and everyone else just want slightly different things out of this show.
Your priorities are not right. I think this is fun. There's awkward dad conversation about the weather.
I mean, it makes sense that like the captain's talking to his first mate about the weather and we need to go soon. But yeah, on a certain level, it is just a dad awkwardly talking to his son about the weather. Their little pajamas.
It looks cozy, actually. It looks very soft and cozy. Does. And I also like how, you know, Alan and Corlys both have a Velaryon sigil on their chests, but Corlys is bigger because he's the Lord.
How does Alan feel wearing the Velaryon sigil?
Yeah.
That must be so strange for him.
So Alan keeps being avoidant. Corlys says, stop being avoidant. You need to be a charismatic leader. And
Alan's like, why don't you stop being avoidant of me as your son?
yeah, that's true. Corlys says, I'm trying to help you. And then Alan gives a delightful monologue about how Corlys gave food and love and protection to his true-born children, Laena and Laena, while Alan and Adam suffered and struggled to survive. It's interesting even that Alan's sigil is like a dark background Valerian sigil, which is almost like the bastard version, you know? Inverted colors for bastards on heraldry.
Maybe as a bastard, he'll take like an actual seahorse as his sigil instead of the heraldic mer horse.
That would be very funny and confusing, so I approve.
Yeah. A lot of the personal arms are confusing.
I fucking love Daeron the Drunken's backwards Targaryen dragon.
Take that, Dad. Why hasn't Daemon taken personal arms of the three-headed dragon just with really long necks?
Just one big loopy neck.
Yeah.
That'd be good. We kind of know this is how he feels, but he finally tells his dad. He finally lets it all out and he says, it's bullshit that you've treated me this way. I can't accept you, so leave me alone. I'll do my job, but don't expect me to love you like a dad because you have not been a dad to me.
Yeah, you can't just waltz in 30 years in and expect me to be a loving son.
So, yeah, I think it's beautiful. I think it's understandable. I think it's well acted.
I think it's 4 episodes too late. Like, this scene unto itself, wonderful. The plotting of getting here, less wonderful.
It's not really a climax or a conclusion. Like, this is a setup to a problem. And now the question is, what's Corlys going to do about this?
Yeah.
And a finale could have been Corlys doing something about his relationship with Alan, but it doesn't happen. We don't get to see it. So it's like, hey, look, it's Raina.
Oh, I know her from the... I'm going to stop making that joke. It's not even a funny joke. Hey, it's Sheep Sealer.
It is insane that the finale of season 2 has 3 Raina scenes and 3 Thailand and Shirako scenes.
Oh, Raina takes up like a cumulative 80 seconds of the episode.
It's still crazy. I find it really funny that Raina is chasing this flying dragon on foot. Can she at least yell?
Hey,
sheep
over here.
In the books, there's a whole story about the claiming of this particular dragon. They could have done some of that here. Maybe they will do some of that in season 3.
Maybe they were going to, and then it was cut.
So we have a scene with Rhaenyra and Mysaria, and I kind of hate it. In the previous episode, Daenerys sent dozens of innocent people to burn alive so that she could get military power.
He means Rhaenyra, everyone. Don't worry.
What did I say?
He said Daenerys.
Well,
you've been thinking about Terminator Genesis too much.
And it really seemed like Rhaenyra was finally doing what she was threatening to do for like 9 consecutive episodes now. Like since the finale of season 1, Rhaenyra's like, oh, I'm angry. I'm
gonna do it.
I'm going to do stuff. I'm going to do violence to get my goals. But now Rhaenyra is, for I swear to Christ, like the 8th time, is saying, I want to win, but I don't want to risk innocent people.
This is literally after she's told her dragon riders, hey, we're going to burn Lannisport and Old Town to the foundations.
She just said she was going to kill innocent people, but now she's like, oh, I don't know. I guess the point is showing that like she's willing to make the sacrifice, but she understands the cost and that makes the sacrifice more meaningful. Like, I guess that's what they're doing. But the delivery and like the words, the tone of it, it feels like she's in the same place emotionally and strategically that she was 6 episodes ago. And the fact that this is in the finale, this is her second last scene, it makes it feel as though she has not progressed. It feels like she has gone nowhere. She's saying the same things that she was in episode 3 and 4 and 5.
This scene is strangely lacking in reflection of what just happened to Rhaenyra. Like, Daemon just pledged a massive army to... How does this not change what your plan is?
Totally.
How are you not talking to Mysaria about Daemon?
Yeah, because they are the...
Like, they bonded over their shared experience of Daemon fucking them over and fucking off. And Rhaenyra's just had this, like, hang on.
Yeah.
Daemon's actually appearing to be really loyal to me right now.
Yeah.
And Mysaria could be like, no, don't trust him.
Agreed. And also Mysaria could be so interesting right now because she's the spy master and she's done all this stuff with Alinda and with Sylvie and all this smuggling. And now there's all this weird smuggling stuff with the Alicent coming over. And like, how do the common people, how do the Dragon Keepers feel? I mean, there's all these things going on Dragonstone and King's Landing, and Mysaria should be the person who knows about those things and can talk about those things. And also she should have opinions about the dozens of civilians that just just burned in front of them, when Mazaria is let's protect the small folk.
So the content of this scene is just sort of like, why are these two people talking about this?
If they're not going to address any of those issues, don't do this scene, because this scene doesn't tell us anything new.
The only like function of this scene is to give me that beautiful shot of the dragons of Hugh and Ulf in their dragon lessons.
They also don't talk about the fact that they like macked recently, which is another thing that they could talk about.
Well, they can't talk about that because it wasn't in the script. So the script can't change for the finale because it wasn't in the script.
I think it might have been Joanna Robinson on that podcast.
I'm fully willing to believe this then if it was Joanna Robinson.
She knows a lot more things than we do about.
Especially than you do, yeah.
But me in particular knows far less.
Yeah.
I think
especially Glidus.
I think Joanna Robinson was saying that Ryan Condal said that the kiss actually was in the script. It was the embrace that wasn't in the script, despite what Sonoya Mizuno said about the script not being.
Oh, that's so confusing. What?
Yeah, I know. The Sonoya.
So there was a kiss without embracing, just like a. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so I think that this scene feels kind of pointless, and it mostly just undoes Rhaenyra's.
Yeah, gee, if you think that the Rhaena scenes in this episode are a waste of screen time.
Yeah, there's a lot of like treading water in this finale, which seems like a terrible idea. I'm intrigued by Mazaria, and I'm disappointed that we're not exploring some of the contradictions in her behavior.
Yeah.
So when Mazaria bangs on about the gods, I'm very curious to know like what that actually means.
Yeah, when her character arc to me, it felt like it was building to her thinking that Rhaenyra was the god.
And like Mazaria strikes me as someone who's deeply disillusioned and deeply cynical about like everything and only trusts herself. And that's why I find it weird that she seems to have faith in quote unquote gods. Look at how Rhaenyra is like holding this pillow. She looks quite a lot like that half of the bed is empty.
Yeah, the bed's too big.
Daemon is decidedly not in her bed.
Yeah. Mazaria's decidedly not in her bed. Alicent's decidedly not in her bed.
She looks very alone. Then she gets a visit from Queen Alicent Hightower.
Oh my god. I'm sort of amazed by how calm Laurent Marbrand is about this.
He's doing the work of 7 men. Leave him alone. So she wants to offer to surrender King's Landing to Rhaenyra so that fewer people will die in the war. But I think mostly she wants to reconnect with her bestie, and
I think she wants to admit that Rhaenyra was right.
Yeah, I think that's a large part of the scene is basically like they've been in conflict for so long, but Alicent is acknowledging that, you know, I thought that if I stuck to my duty and my family, then it would all be worth it, but it hasn't been. And so I guess you were right. Viserys chose Rhaenyra, not Aegon. And
yeah, which is exactly what Daemon said to Rhaenyra in this episode as well. You know, Viserys chose you and I have to now admit that to myself.
And Alicent seems to almost acknowledge that she was wrong, thinking that Viserys chose Aegon after looking for those books and stuff. So yeah, I think this scene is kind of like one big Rhaenyra was right. Kind of hope that feeds into Rhaenyra becomes like a self-believing messiah, you know, prophecy's on my side. Everyone acknowledges the prophecy is on my side.
Yeah, maybe that's the purpose of putting the Mazaria scene before this.
Yeah.
Because it's like it gives us a point from which we can now diverge. Like Rhaenyra's doubting her belief in herself, and then this scene is going to cause her to no longer have that doubt.
Yeah.
Maybe. I have no idea. Also in this scene, Alicent says, I thought there was a path in life. I thought that things were just going to, like, I was told there were rules to these things. There's a fucking strict path that we both have to follow. And I was mad at you for going off the path. She's accessed the clarity to say that, which she got from her little camping trip.
No, I agree. And that's the other thing that's going on in this scene is that they're reverting back to girlhood. They're reverting back to...
Yeah, Rhaenyra says you sound as if from a distant dream. Like this is Emily Carey talking to Rhaenyra.
Alicent's wearing blue, and she wore blue dresses in season 1. So yeah, they are revisiting their relationship as it once was. And I think that is what's happening, is that Alicent is trying to reconnect and rekindle their friendship. So yeah, I think this like works thematically as a reflection on everything that's torn them apart and how theirs was the relationship that really mattered to them. But in a reversal of their Sept conversation earlier, it's now Rhaenyra who has to reject Alicent instead of the other way around. I think this is the most heartbreaking line in the season.
I did not know what I wanted. What I really love about this is that Alicent said like basically this to Otto in episode 9 of season 1. She said, how could I have known what I wanted? And there she said it's like an accusation at Otto. But here it's like she's admitting it to herself.
It's a please forgive me and also please come away with me is what it is.
Yeah, which is super cute that Alicent thinks that that's a reasonable thing. I mean, she doesn't think it's a reasonable thing to say. She knows that none of this is reasonable. It's like Rhaenyra going to the Sept in episode 3. She knows that that's not reasonable. Just as Rhaenyra was like exhausting all of her options, that's what Alicent's doing here.
Alicent admits that she took a lover. She does not admit that the lover is Rhaenyra's ex-lover, Kristen.
It didn't bear mentioning.
And Rhaenyra is sassy. Ooh, you took a lover, you hypocrite.
The incorruptible queen.
Alicent has always been hypocritical in that she has claimed honesty and truth and justice, but she has lied and betrayed and broke rules. And I think like it's admitting that they're both kind of the same. They're just people. They just want what people want, which is love and safety and validation and identity.
Yeah. And you end up telling yourself a story that's based on societal guidelines, and like to deconstruct that story is to like break down your entire life. And that's what Alicent's been doing.
Yeah, they're just two people coming together and going, wow, this world really did a number on us, huh?
Alicent turns to the camera and says, wow, we've really come a long way, haven't we?
I kind of wish they mentioned Luke by name. I kind of wish they mentioned Jaehaerys by name. I wish they mentioned Rhaenys by name.
Rhaenys should be looming over this scene almost as much as Viserys is.
That is one of my criticisms of this finale in general, is that there's so many monumental things that happen this season that don't get mentioned.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how little they talk about Jaehaerys, Luke, Eric, Rhaenys. And so Alicent says, yeah,
the cheese dog.
I'm gonna leave. Come with me. And this is like the same thing that Kristen said to Rhaenyra in season 1.
And but here, instead of like that disgusted face that Millie Alcock pulls, Emma Darcy's like, oh, that's sweet. Aren't you a cutie?
Yeah, Rhaenyra would much rather run away with Alicent than with Kristen. Alicent also says like it's not my fault that the Greens crowned Aegon and went against you, which is largely true. Like she's been complicit in it, but it was very clear that the Greens were going to crown Aegon regardless.
In a very Rhaenyra sort of thing, Alicent could say, what would you have me do? You know, what was her other option?
Alicent chews her fingers.
Eats her hand.
As she used to. And they talk about Viserys. I mean, it's so sad and fucked up that they're still sort of fighting over the love of this dead man, Rhaenyra's father and Alicent's husband. And that always was the sort of fucked up dynamic since season 1. Rhaenyra's best friend married her dad.
Yep.
And that's awkward. And it messed up their relationship. And it's largely Viserys' fault because he did that selfishly.
And they sort of had to compete for him.
Yeah.
Which is weird and wrong.
These two were set up to fail. No one wanted these two to remain friends. I mean, that's one of the fundamental mechanics.
Yeah, no one else cared about their relationship.
Everything was against them getting along. But them getting along was one of the only things that could have perhaps averted this war. It's
sad.
It's real fucking sad. That is the point of this scene. A reflection on the themes and the emotional connection between Rhaenyra and Alicent.
Which is the emotional core of the series.
Yeah. But Alicent also comes with a paper-thin strategic plot suggestion. She offers to make King's Landing surrender to Rhaenyra. I think this is a ludicrous suggestion. Alicent has no authority. Helena also is not a political actor. So it seems unbelievable that Alicent will be able to convince King's Landing to listen to Helena, to surrender, to open the gates to Rhaenyra. Also, why does Rhaenyra need Alicent?
Yeah, well, she has 6 dragons.
She has dragons. The gates don't matter. She could just fly to the Red Keep. And also, King Aegon is the king at King's Landing, and he could prevent King's Landing surrendering to Rhaenyra. It doesn't really make sense on any level. Rhaenyra does not need Alicent to surrender King's Landing, and no one would listen to Alicent anyway. So
she's being a bit delulu.
She's being a bit delulu, but I think, you know, it's just a peace offering. It's just her saying, I want to surrender.
Like, what else can she offer Rhaenyra? Well, the thing that she can offer Rhaenyra is kill my sons, because that's what Rhaenyra needs to do. But she doesn't say that yet because she still thinks, as Rhaenyra accuses her of here, she still thinks that she can like come out of this without like that sort of trauma, without being scarred, which is, again, exactly the same sort of attitude that Rhaenyra had going into their previous meeting. Like, you think you can just come in here and ask me to like end this simply? And
it's so sad that they're sort of vindictively taking this out on each other when neither of them wanted children to be killed.
What they really need is Daemon and Aemond in here to be blamed and then killed.
And yeah, like so Rhaenyra says you need to agree for Aegon to die. And that also is kind of ludicrous because Alicent has no say in whether or not Aegon lives.
No, but I think it's really interesting that we all know that this is terrible. But if you can see why this needs to happen, then I can be more okay with it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think part of it is like Rhaenyra is like, I don't want to murder my best friend's son because of the impact that'll have on my best friend. I don't want to cause that to my best friend, but I do have to do it. So I need to tell her to acknowledge it and accept it because I have to do this terrible thing. And
what a horrible thing to ask. A son for a son in a literal sense means you killed my son, I'll kill your son. But like it's a metaphorical extension of the dictum eye for an eye, right? This is about revenge. This is about what happens when you engage in that sort of retributive justice.
Yeah, it's so perverse, the trading of children's blood. But that's kind of what this whole system's built on. So yeah, again, like I'm glad that they say a son for a son to evoke Jaehaerys and Luke, but I wish they said their names. The first time I saw this scene, it did not compel me. It did not grab me as much as it does now. And I think...
Well, yeah, there's a lot to pull you out because it is like fucking weird.
This scene starts on a bad foot because it starts with another fucking secret, sneaky visit to between Dragonstone and King's Landing, which they've done like 6 times. Like it starts on a bad foot. It starts with implausibility, and like the offer of surrendering King's Landing is kind of nonsensical. The offer of you must accept Aegon's death is kind of not a strategically relevant thing. But like emotionally and thematically, it's all there. So you've kind of got to turn off the plot part of your brain for this scene to be enjoyable, which is unfortunate.
I don't like that. I don't like that to enjoy this as much as I want to. I have to disengage that sort of narrative interrogation in my brain. But it is in service of shit that I really like.
And yeah, Alicent ultimately sort of quietly nods and agrees that Aegon must die.
She can't even like say the words.
The other sort of unspoken thing here is that Alicent has already accepted that Aemond must die, and that's not hard for her.
Yeah, that one's easy. And that's really something because Aegon is basically already dead, like in some sense.
Yeah.
Physically, he's just fucking done for.
Aegon almost wants to die.
Yeah.
Alicent cares so much more for him than she does for Aemond, or at least has already let go of Aemond, which is so sad because there is a world in which Alicent and Aemond reconciled. There is a world in which Alicent gave Aemond the love he seeked, in which Aemond admitted the truth that he did not mean to kill Luke and admitted his vulnerability. I think at this point it's too late, but there was a time when Alicent and Aemond could have reconciled, and I think the failure to do that is so sad and tragic.
Yeah, in the same way that like Rhaenyra and Daemon can never truly reconcile because Daemon had an infant killed.
It's about how we're bound by the past, we're chained by the past, we're slaves to the trauma that we have of what has happened. We want to move forward.
Not me. I'm not.
No one wants to be subject to the horrors of the past, but everyone is, and we are made by them. And that's what A Song of Ice and Fire is about. And I think that it ties nicely into the prophetic vision stuff. Like, yeah, like the goofy tree man and the Halloween White Walker, whatever. But what that's really about is that the ideals and the dreams and the battles and the politics and the ancestors that came before us made us. And
we will make our descendants and our futures.
The momentum of the past carries us into the future, like the tapestry at the start of every episode. Rhaenyra says that history will paint Alicent as a villain.
A grasping, cold queen desperate for power.
Because if Rhaenyra wins, then Alicent will be made out to be the baddie.
But what Rhaenyra like sort of fails to realize here is that she could be describing herself. She could be described as a villain.
Well, I like Rhaenyra's confidence here.
Yeah, like when I win, this is how you'll be thought of.
Helena just prophesied that Aegon will be king.
You know, we saw Daemon drowning in a inky black pool, and there's 2 more seasons of this show, Rhaenyra. You have no idea what's going to happen in them. And
Alicent says, that's fine. I don't want to be remembered. I want to be free.
That's fine. Who cares what they put in some dumb history book? I want to go look at some birds. I want to go sip mimosas on Tyrosh. There's a monkey. I want to go see the monkey. What a way to live. Alicent's finally figured it out.
Rhaenyra says that her future was decided for her long ago.
In episode 1, one of the first things we learn about Rhaenyra is that she wants to ride her dragon, eat cake, and hang out with her best friend.
Yeah.
And now she's saying that she is stuck here being a politician, being a fucking genocidal maniac, apparently.
Yeah.
And like it's decided for her because of the rules of society. And Alicent's the one saying, hey, let's go ride dragons and hang out and eat cake. My sapphic dragon teleplay has come full circle.
It was decided for her long ago by Viserys, by Fate, by the Song of Ice and Fire. Or did she decide?
By George R.R. Martin.
Rhaenyra absolutely has the power to get on a dragon with Alicent and fly to the other side of the world. She could do that.
Alicent is now aware that everything, it is a choice. She does have a choice.
She's discovered the concept of freedom.
And Rhaenyra has forgotten it.
Yeah. Well, she's full of the fire of prophecy and self-confidence and dragons.
And that's bound her.
Yeah, Alicent is the one who has no power, but she has the freedom to choose. Rhaenyra has all the power, but none of the freedom to choose. And that's captured beautifully by this shot of like the Valyrian scrolls history duty weight bearing down upon Rhaenyra.
And there's a dead dragon.
Her. Yeah. Yeah, which is mirrored again at the end of the episode. So the season ends with a montage.
Montage! Are they getting ready to attack King's Landing or Lannisport or Old Town? What are they doing?
It is puzzling because Alicent said in 3 days' time, come to King's Landing. Very coincidental that Alicent said 3 days' time, just like Rhaenyra said 3 days' time, we're going to Lannisport and Old Town. So yeah, not entirely clear where they're going.
That's a bit of a cliffhanger, I guess.
Do you think Rhaenyra has told her dragon riders where they are going?
I thought we were going to Casterly Rock. Oh, I thought we were going to White Harbour.
Maybe they're going to Yeen. Hightowers marching with the dragon Tessarion, flown by Daeron Targaryen.
It's Tessarion!
I love how blue Tessarion is. They bumped up the
She's so
color
blue.
so much.
They took the saturation and did...
All the saturation that wasn't on Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion in Game of Thrones, they took that and they gave it to Tessarion, and it was worth it.
Can you see any of Daeron there?
Yeah, people have tried to zoom in. I don't think we can, but we should finally meet Alicent and Viserys' third son next season.
Incredible. The third brother, whatever his name is.
Where do you think the Hightower army is? Is that meant to be the Riverlands because it's next to a river?
What's that off on the left there? Is that just like a rock formation or?
Looks like
Oh, it's a tree. Sorry, everyone. It's a tree.
Do you need to get your eyes checked? Kragan Stark reportedly was in this shot originally, but then they like edited him out because they decided that he's not in it anymore.
And that's fine because I would rather focus on this guy with the massive fucking hammer anyway.
He's almost as cool as the mallet guy on the Valerian docks.
Dare I say he's cooler.
Whoa. Here's Jason and Humphrey with the Lannister army. So yeah, the armies are on the march. And again, I mean, this is a reminder that like, Rhaenyra, why are you burning Lannisport when none of the Lannister army is in Lannisport? Why are you burning Old Town when none of the Hightower army is in Old Town?
Yeah, which makes me think that she's not actually going to do that. But it's still such a weird strategy.
So why did they suggest it? Yeah. Why did they bring it up?
So that there can be a big switcheroo when Alicent shows up and says, hey, you should do the thing that you should have been doing the whole time.
It's going to be very funny if Rhaenyra turns up at King's Landing and says, my good friend Alicent opened the gates and is surrendering her son, King Aegon. And they're like, oh yeah, King Aegon left like a week ago.
He's gone.
If there's another silly, bloody misunderstanding, misinterpretation issue, like with Viserys' last words and everything again.
Oh, I'm fully convinced that Rhaenyra is going to think that Alicent betrayed her because Aegon's not there.
Can they all have the same facts and be on the same page at least once?
Yeah, that'd be good.
At least one time. So Tyland has...
That's Tyrod, actually.
Tyrod has nailed his boots to the deck.
I know, right? How is he doing that?
It's so
he's
slippery.
Fucking gyroscopic.
The entire like hold of their ship is just full of Shirako's wives.
There's no room for wheat. There's no room for beer. We've got to, there's more wives. Keep bringing them on.
The Triarchy has a sigil.
Yeah.
It's got skulls.
Yes.
Skulls and what? Skulls and fists? Skulls and... We're going to need to enhance later, I guess. Alan and Corlys are wearing spectacularly ornate armor.
It's epic. Look at the seahorse on Corlys' armor. It's so cool.
And he's got the hand of the queen sigil as well.
Cool.
The books talk about how insanely brave and suicidal it is to wear full plate when you might fall off and drown. Only Victarion is stupid enough to do that.
And he's so proud of himself for being that stupid.
Hey, it's a dragon.
Rah, hi.
Did Sheepstealer drop a dead animal out of its mouth to roar at Rhaena?
I think so.
I love how freaky Sheepstealer looks.
He's so gnarly and fucked up.
He looks wild, like he hasn't been getting like scritches and
hasn't
like
have his claws trimmed.
Yeah.
Now that's a job the Dragon Keepers aren't doing anymore.
They're really the dragon manicurists, as it turns out. But yeah, I love this sort of like dappled, striated sort of thing that he's got going on. So do you think that Rhaena's going to claim Sheepstealer, or do you think that Sheepstealer's going to eat Rhaena? That'd be a very funny thing to do at the end of this.
Yeah.
At this situation.
Oh, she died off screen. Blackfish style.
It's Risa Fons. Oh yeah, Blackfish died off screen. Jesus Christ. It's Otto.
What's he doing?
Allison told him to go to
Highgarden.
He wanted to go to Old Town. So maybe he's in the Reach somewhere, but maybe he's on the Summer Isles. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe he's gone to Yeen. Maybe he's been captured by the Valarian blockade. Someone has to be.
Aegon and Laris have escaped King's Landing. Laris is someone who I can believe could pull this off.
Absolutely.
We've never had actual confirmation that Laris knows the secret passages of the Red Keep, but I presume that he does. It's interesting that they never gave us any kind of clarity on Laris's spying rats situation. I was hopeful that they would give us something about how Laris knows what he knows, but I guess not.
And then we get these comparison shots between Alicent and Rhaenyra, and it's a striking visual way to end the season.
I think that it's like shockingly beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
And it perfectly encapsulates like the thematic situation with Rhaenyra being crushed by duty and history and Alicent finding freedom. Like Alicent is also like at the edge of a cliff or some shit, which is like dangerous and like nigh suicidal, I feel, you know? Like she is in a sort of self-destructive, like she's lost everything.
But she also has everything now. She like has everything to gain.
She has endless possibilities now, but she also has nothing. She has a blank canvas.
And Rhaenyra is surrounded by filled canvases.
Yeah, I mean, we've established that those scrolls contain like the heritage and history and family trees of House Targaryen and Valyria. So like it very literally is past generations weighing down upon her, and like the prophecy, all those like the queens who ever were, you know, all the queens who ever were are in those scrolls above her.
Oh yeah.
So the idea that, you know, Queen Rhaenyra, Queen Helena, Queen Daenerys, Queen Visenya, Queen Rhaenys, all of them are part of the tapestry, the thread of fate of which Rhaenyra is a part. But also Alicent is one of the queens who ever was.
And she is now out there able to write her own story. She's going to was all over the place.
She sure is. I think it's very beautiful. And it's a nice way to end the episode. It's a nice way to end the season, these shots. But I wish they had the climax that they wanted to write.
Yeah, like this could feel so much heavier if more shit had happened in this episode.
The montage is cool, but none of it's new information. Like, we already saw Jason and Humphrey marching with the Lannisters.
We already knew the Starks were going to cross at the Twins.
We've already been told that Tessarion is flying.
We already... For fuck's sake, we know that Corlys's ship is ready. I guess we get the new information that Laris and Aegon have left. They were going to, and now they have.
It is very funny that they just had this massively emotional conversation about, yeah, I'll give up Aegon. And I was like, bye, Aegon's not there.
Yes, I guess Helena is the Crown's authority in King's Landing, if Aemon's gone.
We've never seen anyone listen to Helena.
Well, we've never seen both Aegon and Aemond not there to give people orders.
I think that is a great question.
What happens when they're both gone?
I guess Jasper Wilde is the government now.
Oh my god. This guy who's famous for his stiff rod is going to be in charge of the government today.
I love democracy. It's the end of the season. What did you think of Hot Tea Season 2? It ended while we weren't looking. It's over. It's over, Glidus.
What do we do now?
I don't know. I enjoyed watching this season.
That's good.
Did you enjoy watching this season?
Yeah, I enjoyed watching it. Some scenes were like, ah.
I think it's really unfortunate that like the final episode had a much higher than average number of fucking like, let's go burn Old Town.
Yeah, what's up
like,
with
what
that?
are you talking about? And then like Alicent sneaks onto Dragonstone. Like, what the fuck? And then like zoom in on the asymmetrical White Walker potato face. Like, and yeah, I still think like
I still like it. Overall,
I'm deeply frustrated by Rhaenyra saying the same thing
over and over
10
and over
times.
again. And like her character does develop, but then like every other scene she says the same thing that she said at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Like she's constantly going in a direction, but also checking back in on where she was. And it's like, pick one.
Yeah, I mean, it's
pick one, Jaime Lannister.
As a story, as an arc, I think Rhaenyra is frustrating. They didn't have to tweak much. They just needed to continue the momentum from episode 7. Tom Glencarney was incredible throughout.
Yep, Tom Glencarney, Matthew Needham.
I loved Laris's relationship with Tom Glencarney. It was great. I think one of the biggest frustrations is Corlys, because Corlys, he's one of the most powerful people in Westeros, but you wouldn't know it. by watching this season. He's the Hand of the Queen. They made a big deal of making him Hand of the Queen, and then he did nothing. And again, like I think that's got a lot to do with the climax that they cut off. I liked Orwell's little arc. Kristen's monologue this episode was
fantastic.
Was brilliant. So yeah, all the ingredients are there. They just cut off the climax.
I think if this episode wasn't like given the immense task of being the last one of the season, it would be like on par with episode like 3. Like it's fine.
Yeah, this is not a banger episode. Like there's no world in which this is like a banger episode.
Oh, there are some scenes that are becoming of a banger episode, but not the whole thing.
Unbecoming of a banger episode.
Your Grace.
The thing that is both good and bad about this season is that there's a lot of setup. Like I'm excited to see what happens.
Coming.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with Ulf.
I'm excited to see what happens with basically everyone.
Yeah, I'm excited to see like what Laris and Aegon. Like, are you kidding me? The adventures of Laris and
Aemond keeps talking about going to Harrenhal. I want to see that guy in the Harrenhal of House of the Dragon. That's going to be so fun and
Alice,
fucked up.
Helena,
right?
I'm really excited for pretty much everything to come, but that's exactly how I felt last season.
That's how I should feel before watching the finale of the season, right?
Yeah. I feel so ready for a finale. It does feel a lot like we are in almost exactly the same place now that we were at the end of season 1.
If I dive into the minutiae, like that, I think that claim falls apart from the outside. Just like broadly looking at the whole thing, it's there. Like I feel it. I'm with you.
Like like the details, no, but like in terms of like the emotional and even political situation for most characters, it's pretty similar.
And it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like, given what actually happens. So much happens, actually. But the characters feel as though not much has.
I think in a weird way, a lot of the consequential events did not leave lasting consequences. Like Jaehaerys and Arik and Eric.
Yeah, just because like they're not addressed in depth by the characters.
I had a great time watching every episode. We are going to have another conversation in which we will go through spoilers, because I think there's a lot of really interesting discussions to be had about what season 3 might look like compared to the books based on what happened in season 2. So we will do much speculation there, but I think this wraps up our non-spoiler coverage of House of the Dragon season 2.
Jeezy kableezy. What a ride it's been.
What a ride it's been. I think that the total runtime of all of our dragon talks plus the fake Jon Snow, I think it's now longer than Game of Thrones.
Don't say it.
I think that you can now listen to us talk about House of the Dragon and Jon Snow for a longer time than the total duration of Game of Thrones.
Oh no, and that includes our season 1 discussions?
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Why did we do this?
I'm not sure. I had fun doing it though. Thank you for dragon timing with me.
Thank you for dragon timing with me.
All right, we're not gonna.
I love how that's how we end things.
I've been talking for like 6 hours. We're tired.
Oh my god.
Bye.
Jeez.
Bye.